Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of the Air Raid Hour. It is the 2025 NFL Draft, and here at Cover One, we are going to be taking you through all three nights. Myself and Dave will be taking you through night one and night two, and then Joe DeRosa is going to take over on day three, and we're going to have all the picks for you. And our focus, of course, is going to be on the Buffalo Bills. Dave, all the preparations we've put in, it's about time to get to work.
It's about time to get to work. You can tell I'm serious because I'm wearing my glasses tonight. We'll see how long that lasts because the reflection's kind of bothering me a bit. But yes, all the preparation. I do think that the fact that we really kind of honed in our focus this cycle on the positions of what are pretty apparent needs for the Bills are really going to help us out, I think, when it comes to reacting, predicting, that type of thing. And I also think that, like, for me, at least, the last 3 to 4 weeks, April has flown by, and I know the draft is slightly earlier probably than usually. It's in the late 20s as far as the days in April. So we're a little earlier than usual, but man, things are about to kick off. All the speculation's about to go out the window, and we're going to get some real picks here. So it's like Christmas for us tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, it's my wife's been dating me for 7 years now, married to me for about 3, and she still doesn't understand. She's like, why do you go hole up in the guest room for 3 nights once a year? And I'm like, it's my Christmas. That's why I go hole myself up in the guest room and do this live coverage here. Justin Tino comes in for Super Chat. I always appreciate you, Justin. He says, an annual tradition to watch the best Bills draft coverage on Cover One. What I'm hoping for is a trade down from 30 to get an additional third and trade 2 fourths for a third, and we end up with 3 seconds and 2 thirds. That could be quite a haul for the Buffalo Bills, and it'll be really interesting to see what the Buffalo Bills decide to do tonight, because there are just so many directions that they could go. They could try to trade up, right, for maybe what they see as some of the premier players in this draft. They could maybe try to do a minor trade up for a guy at a position they really like if they think the board is falling a certain way, and guys at a position they want are starting to fall off the board. They could hold steady at 30, or they could trade back. So there's a number of directions that the Buffalo Bills could go. It's going to be really interesting to see how Brandon Beane plays this board tonight.
I know, and there's so many ways you can get that third rounder, and I think keeping the pick at 30, obviously, then the only real option probably after that becomes trading those extra fourths, right, that you have. The other option, as mentioned in the Super Chat, right, is to trade out of the first round and collect that third that way, and potentially, again, maybe even add an additional third by using those fourths. So that, I think, maybe would be the best of both worlds for a lot of people, because I think there may be some growing fear, I guess I would say, or anxiety around what might not fall to the Bills at pick 30 tonight, right, as far as positions of need. And I mean, I thought you did a really good, and it was somewhat facetious, but not really, right, about if this is how everything played out, and you had everything ahead of the Bills, all the edges picked, all the D tackles picked, all the corners picked, and what would you actually do in that scenario? Would the Bills go and pick the best player available, regardless if it wasn't for a position of obvious need, or would they try to trade down, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of things like that happen tonight, and it's going to really start interesting. I think get interesting when you start to get to pick 20 or on the Denver Broncos, and then from there on to see if the phones start ringing for a potential trade up.
And that, to me, through all the discourse that has gone on over the course of draft season, that's what always just, it kind of triggers me the most. And I end up losing my temper and become a keyboard warrior on social media with people. Probably have to send out some apologies to some people I've had conversations with on social media, but it's we have no idea how the board is going to fall. So for people who are we have to get a defensive tackle with our first pick, or we have to get a cornerback with our first pick, what if 4 corners are off the board? What if 4 DTs, which could possibly happen, are off the board, or 5 DTs are off the board? You are going to pass on safety number 1, Malachi Starks, who some consider, myself consider a top 10, 15 talent in this draft, right? Oh, well, then just trade back. It's okay, but you need people who want to trade back with you. Do we have a trade partner? It's looking like possibly the New York Giants want to trade back into the first round. So if a guy like Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart is still on the board, that could play in the Buffalo Bills' favor. I think the big rumor today was like the Giants were dangling Kayvon Thibodeau, which would be super interesting if we could trade back with the New York Giants and they literally give us Kayvon Thibodeau to move back up into the first round and get a first-year option, and we get their second-round pick too, and only drop back a couple of spots. That would be nuts. I can't imagine a world where the Giants are trying to do that. I know they're desperate, but it's more likely to be like their third rounder and Kayvon Thibodeau to try and move back into the first round, which I would not do. But just a ton of possibilities, a ton of different things could happen tonight, and I just hope people keep an open mind as to who the Buffalo Bills take, because it might not be a cornerback and it might not be a defensive tackle.
Yeah, and I think like in a world where I think it was Merck who put it on Twitter earlier today. Great follow, by the way. Very insightful, really good, level-headed takes. He basically said, look, the Bills, we shouldn't be thinking about the Bills in terms of like positional need necessarily on defense, right? We should be thinking about what the Bills need on defense are playmakers. And he made a good point. It's like they have a bunch of glue type of guys, right? They have a bunch of guys that are steady, that are good, solid players, but they do need playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that that type of playmaker may not be at necessarily a position you would think that the Bills obviously need. In this case, edge, D tackle, or corner. That position could be a safety. That could be a Malachi Starks. And so that type of pick would not upset me if that was the case. Thinking ahead, like I do agree with that sentiment that this team does need playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And even though maybe safety isn't an apparent one, right? There is still an opportunity to add a playmaker potentially. And I will also add to that the fact that the Bills do have 2 second-round picks. I think if they do end up staying at 30 or picking tonight, and they pick a position maybe that is not of obvious need, like safety. Let's just say they do take Malachi Starks tonight. They still have the 2 second-round picks. So like we need to let things play out and see kind of how things round out in the early portions of this draft for the Bills before we really, I think, assess whether they've addressed the needs appropriately, right? Because there could be a scenario where they do take Starks at 30. They take like a defensive tackle and a corner in the second round, and maybe they use those 2 fourths to move up in the third and take an edge player. Then all of a sudden you did address the needs, right? Between day 1 and day 2. So playmakers are what we want. And if one of those playmakers happens to be at a position that does seem to fit an apparent need, then I'm all for it. Great. But I don't think they should overthink it when you're picking at pick 30.
Yeah, when it comes to like sort of the temperament of Bills Mafia, I really do feel like the time between the picks that we're making over the course of this weekend are really going to eat away at some people. Right? Like if we take an edge rusher with the first round, like people are going to be really uneasy until the Buffalo Bills address corner, until they address defense tackle. I mean, even if we get a defensive tackle in the first round, people are going to be really uneasy until we address corner, etc. So it's a waiting game. We got to be patient. We got 2 full days of live coverage here, plus the third day with Joe DeRosa to talk through it. We got your back. Just the Tip of Canute comes in and he says, just got home from work, wings in the air fryer while I take a shower, triple view of NHL and NBA playoffs on the main TV and cover one on my mounted second TV. Yes.
So he's watching us while he's in the shower. Okay.
Who needs shower beers when you got shower air raid hour? I think that's let's not start that. Let's not start that trend. I'm looking at the draft here, right? And this is the first time I ever not had the TV on in the background. So I kind of have it on my phone here and I'm trying to watch on my phone. Are the Titans on the clock? The Titans are on the clock. Of course, they're going to use all 8 minutes, even though we know who they're about to select here. But Dave, I want to talk about the guys, like whether the Buffalo Bills are going to try to make a trade up. And we've had conversations on our show about where they should try to trade up to. And 24 seems like the logical spot. I know the reports came out today that the Bills were on the phone with Pittsburgh, who holds, I believe, the 20th pick. I can double check that real quick. They hold the 21st pick. So Brandon Beane is clearly calling around and trying to get a gauge for how much it'll cost to move up. He's definitely calling and trying to get a gauge for how to trade down if he feels like he needs to trade down, depending on how the board falls. But as the names start dropping, these are some of the key names that I'm focused in on tonight. I think the names that most fans, right, want to focus in on are Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Matthew Golden. I think those might be the big five at positions of like 2025 need. I think Mike Green, I came out with my big board today. Mike Green was the number one want for me. I know he's got the character concerns, and if the Buffalo Bills deem they don't want to touch that for those reasons, by all means, don't do it. But he was number one on my big board as an edge rusher. I think he is a difference-making edge rusher. You also have those more length and strength guys in Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart. You have another DT in the mix, Walter Nolan, who another guy with maybe some character issues. They call him sort of the biggest mercenary in this draft. He went to 3 different high schools, 2 different colleges, just anywhere that would pay him, he went. So there's some concerns about sort of his character and his work ethic between the whistles. You got Jihad Campbell, the linebacker, at a position of need, but he is up there on most people's big boards as a top 15 overall player in this draft. Same with Malachi Starks at safety, both positions of 2026 need possibly for the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo Bills have some options, and that's what we're really going to be keeping track of over the first 20 picks, from Matthew Golden to Mike Green to Michael Williams to Shamar Stewart to Walter Nolan to Derek Harmon to Kenneth Grant to Jihad Campbell to Will Johnson to Jahdae Barron to Malachi Starks. How many of these guys are coming off the board, and how many guys are left when the Buffalo Bills are in range to possibly trade up? And Will Johnson has that knee injury that just came out today as well. So what are your thoughts on some of these names? And am I missing any sort of the major, like, big ticket names? Because I know there's a lot of other names that I think are more secondary.
No, Will Johnson's an interesting one, right? And I put in the Cover One Discord chat earlier in the week. It's like the chatter around Will Johnson and that knee feels very similar to what we saw a couple years ago with Caleb Farley, right? And the potential issues that he was going to slide in the draft because of his knee issues and his back issues. And we saw a guy like Caleb Farley, who a lot of people leading up to that pre-draft process were basically like, this guy is a top 10 player if we can get assurance that he's going to be healthy, right? He ends up falling to 22 in that draft. And I find that interesting because Will Johnson, there's a lot of chatter about him lately. There's a lot of pre-draft buzz that he was going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. What's that going to mean for him tonight? If he slides into the 20s, let's say to 21 with Pittsburgh or to 24 with Minnesota, is that someone that the Bills are willing to take a chance on to go up and get? And to me, that becomes interesting because if a guy like Jahdae Barron is already off the board, then the Bills have to really kind of figure out if that a guy like Will Johnson is going to move the needle for them more than guys like Rebel and Hairston and Amos. That's interesting to me. The defensive lineman you mentioned, I find that this draft in particular, especially in the early part, the first round, it's not a great quarterback draft. The wide receivers, there's maybe 3, maybe 4 we're talking about. That's way different than last year. 2 tight ends, probably. It's very spread out. 1, maybe 2 running back. It's very spread out. The concentration where a lot of the top picks are going to be tonight, I think, is going to be across the defensive line, right? And that's edge players and defensive tackles, both areas of need for the Bills. So those are the guys in the group that you mentioned there. If those guys start flying off the board, then the Bills could find themselves in a conundrum where there's a player maybe like Starks or Jihad Campbell that make it to 30, and then they're going to be really in a conundrum on what to do.
Yeah, I think there's a cliff at cornerback as well, and we'll talk about all of that in a moment. But the first pick is in, so producer Chris. With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward. Everyone is completely shocked that Cam Ward has come off the board first overall. Looking at Cam Ward, he was a 1-year starter at Miami in Shane Dawson's RPO-based offense there. And then he spent previous years at junior college in Washington State. So a 1-year sort of riser here in the draft community. But he goes first overall. The Titans get their quarterback. If you ask me personally, I don't think there was a single quarterback worth a first-round pick this year, and I think this might be a mistake from the Tennessee Titans, but we got a trade. We have a trade. Have you seen this, Dave?
Yeah. Let's hit it. The trade alert graphic. Come on.
Oh, no. Oh, there we go. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. I wonder who this could be for. It's got to be Travis Hunter, right? Or Abdul Carter. My guess is if you're making a trade up here, though, it is for Travis Hunter. My question, though, if you're the Cleveland Browns, what the hell are you doing? Like, you are giving up on a generational talent in Travis Hunter. It must be an absolute haul the Jacksonville Jaguars gave up for this pick.
I see. Yeah, and see, I don't mind this for Cleveland at all, right? Like
Really?
one player for them, like yeah, I don't mind this for Cleveland. Like they're nowhere close, in my opinion, to competing realistically in that division. Is Travis Hunter going to change the fortunes of the Cleveland Browns franchise on his own? I don't know, right? I don't know. And I would imagine the fact that the Jags were 10, right? If I'm not mistaken, and were they the 10th pick, or were they fit 5? I can't
They
remember.
were 5.
In any case, okay, so they
Sure.
were 5. They move up to 2. I don't know why I was thinking they were 10, but anyway, in any case, they move up to 2. You got to think Cleveland got some kind of massive haul for this. So I don't hate it for Cleveland, right? I just feel like they're a little ways away. And I don't necessarily think Travis Hunter is going to make them a playoff team all of a sudden, I guess is what I'll say. So I'm sure for them, and trying to kind of think into the future beyond getting past Deshaun Watson's contract and all of this stuff, that they're trying to really rebuild, I guess, from the ground up. So, yeah.
Chris in our private chat has told us what the compensation was. The Browns get pick number 5, pick number 36, which is their first pick in the second round, the Jaguars, pick number 126, which is their 4th round pick, and Jaguars' first round pick next year in exchange for pick number 2, a 4th,
that's a
and
lot.
a 6th. So really, if you cancel out the 4ths, it was 2 1s and a 2 to move up for what is in all likelihood here Travis Hunter. I mean, James Gladstone comes from a place in Los Angeles where they are really big on the analytics, and they are really big on finding sort of players in the aggregate, right? Using their spreadsheets and their analytics and all those things to find the later round steals to bulk up their roster. They were known in LA for making those big swings for big time talent. And now you see the Jacksonville Jaguars do that here and take a big swing for what I think we are all assuming here is going to be Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big swing. And if you're the Jags, this is one of those where all the smoke was like they were going to move, maybe try to move ahead of, the Bears were maybe going to try to move ahead of the Jags because they were worried that the Jags were going to take Genty. And that's clearly not going to be the case. You're not going to trade up to the number 2 pick to take Genty. So it certainly looks like it's going to be Travis Hunter. And I'd be curious to know what their plans are going to be with Travis Hunter and how they're going to use him. Are they use him on offense? Is he going to be a defensive player for them? Going to try, at least in the start, to use him both ways. I feel like the Jags, I want to kind of understand what their vision is for this, because I don't know like what their plan is here. So it is a lot to give up to move up 3 spots. You were already the 5th pick. So I don't know.
Here's how you justify it. Here's how you justify it. You use your 2025 first round pick on Travis Hunter, the cornerback, and your 2026 first round pick on Travis Hunter, the wide receiver.
Oh, so yeah, you get 2 for 1. You don't need that. You don't need that pick next year anymore.
Browns are tanking for ARH, is what a couple of people in the comments section are saying. So there we go. Thank you. If ARH even comes out next year.
I mean, I think that's a really good haul for the Browns. I would be curious to see what like the value chart says on like who came out ahead, but like my gut reaction says that was a good deal for the Browns.
All right. The pick is in. With the second pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Travis Hunter. Hunter is seeking to become the biggest two-way player in the NFL level in quite some time. He should be able to get there even if he isn't full force on both sides of the ball right away. The economics of adding a potential starter on both sides of the ball with one pick is the cherry on top for draft value here as the Jacksonville Jaguars take their first big swing. And now the New York Giants find themselves on the clock, and we have some more intrigue here as well. All reports today and over the course of the week have indicated the New York Giants are not planning on adding a quarterback with the third overall pick, which means a position player like Abdul Carter is in play. I think as a Bills fan, though, Dave, we are all sort of hoping for a quarterback to go here and then a run on quarterbacks to go, even though these quarterbacks are all doo-doo.
They are, and I think like a team like the Giants, who is going to be picking early, they're going to have to try to figure out what they want to do with the quarterback position. Obviously, they got Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson. They still have Tommy DeVito. Like, what's their plan? I think for the Giants organization and kind of seeing how things played out on Hard Knocks last year, it's like I think they need a just solid, no nonsense, like can't mess this up type of pick that they're not going to get panned for. So to me, it seems like an obvious pick to take Abdul Carter here and pair him up with Thibodeau, and then see what you can do later in the draft, right? Because the expectation is that it's not a great quarterback draft, and there's a possibility that Cam Ward may be the only quarterback taken in the first round tonight with the first overall pick. We'll see what happens when we get to the Saints and maybe when we get to Pittsburgh later. But I think if no quarterbacks get taken by pick 21 with Pittsburgh, then maybe you see some teams trying to move back up into the end of the first round, like the Giants or the Saints, to try to maybe get a guy like Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders. So we'll see. But the Giants here, they really should take Carter, in my opinion. He looks phenomenal, and to me, there's just too many question marks about the rest of the quarterbacks right now to kind of take a swing and then put into your room a guy like whoever they take now and then have to worry about what they're going to do later in the draft. Because to me, I just don't see the value right now in passing on a guy like Carter. I know they need a quarterback and there's other ways to do it, but it just doesn't make sense here to me.
And if they add a guy like Carter, that might make them more willing to trade a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau to their best friends, down the interstate in Buffalo. So that'll be super interesting to keep track of as well. All right, while the Giants are on the clock, let's get back to the Buffalo Bills a little bit. And I want to talk about sort of the second tier. We talked about that first tier before all the picks started to fly in, and some of the bona fide players in this draft that maybe the Buffalo Bills would try to pursue. Obviously the goal is to get a Kenneth Grant or a Derek Carman or a Jahdae Barron or Will Johnson, but if that doesn't come about and the Buffalo Bills decide to pivot to what I'm guessing is guys they have second round grades on, now there's some intrigue, right? Like you could start to hear names like Donovan Izaraku. You could start to hear names like Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, Tyleek Williams, Darius Alexander, even a guy like maybe TJ Sanders. There are some JT Tuamalu I heard floated out by a couple of people today. There's some options on the defensive line if you want to go there and address that. If you were looking to address the secondary, not the safety position, but the cornerback position, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, Benjamin Morrison, Azari Thomas, Shavon Revel Jr. It wouldn't shock me if any of these guys were this year's like version of I don't want to say they're going to be Kyrie Elam in the pros, but like this year's version of like the Buffalo Bills see a run on corners and trade up 3 spots to go get a guy that they like. Hopefully this one turns out a little bit better than Kyrie Elam. But even though Brandon Beane said he had a first round grade on Kyrie Elam in that draft, I don't believe him. I think that was a second round player that they were trading up for because they saw the board falling a certain way and boundary corners leaving the board, and they feel like they had to address that position with a guy who they thought they could plug and play. So if the Buffalo Bills are looking for a plug and play guy at an immediate need position, the Bills have some options. What are your thoughts on some of your favorites? If the Buffalo Bills just decide to stand pat at 30 and maybe take a sort of a chalky pick.
I mean, to be honest, like a chalky pick as we see it would not upset me at all, right? You're talking about like a Trey Amos, or you're talking about like maybe a Walter Nolan, right? It's someone like that. If you don't think a guy like Harmon can get there, if you don't think a guy like Barron, like you just said, can get there, I think the worry I have is in my official prediction today, whatever, it's not official by
Mhm.
anything except for me. It's an official prediction. My prediction that I'm sticking with is that I think the Bills are going to either take a guy like Landon Jackson or TJ Sanders if they stay at 30. And I know that's going to upset a lot of people.
Mhm.
But when you listen to Brandon Beane talk about what they wanted at the defensive line and a 3-down player and that they would value those guys a little bit more, both of those guys in their respective positions are 3-down players, right? And so that's why I feel like it would be a Billsy pick. It's not necessarily a chalky pick. I think a chalky pick would be an Amos, would be a Revel, would be a Hairston even, or a Nolan, right? If you start getting in that. Donovan E, out of all those guys you mentioned, he would be super intriguing to me. I think if the edge position had
Mhm.
thinned out and there's still a bunch of corners on the board, I would be, as you know, he was my no matter what edge player in this draft. I would take him. That's who I would take in that scenario of the guys you mentioned.
And he has been so linked to Tampa Bay, and that makes so much sense for Tampa Bay. He's their type of like edge rusher, kind of like I think in that Shaq Barrett mold. And that's what like I have pause with Donovan Iziraku, not the player, because I'm with you. I think he's a really good player. Like I just have pause, like, is that what the Buffalo Bills are looking to add to the room? Maybe it is because like Joey Bosa is a power player, Groot's a power player. Maybe they're trying to add sort of that bendier guy like a Donovan Iziraku. I, I just have this weird feeling in my gut, right? Like I think the Bills probably see a lot of Gregory Rousseau and Landon Jackson. Now, Landon Jackson is a guy who has developed physically and matured into his body like rather rapidly over the past couple of seasons. You saw him like working the bags 2 years ago versus like working the bags this year. And it was like a night and day difference in his body composition and his build. He was used a lot of um, he was used in a way at Arkansas that was not conducive to piling up sacks and things like that. And there are multiple people who believe that put in a different position, he will be more successful in the National Football League getting at the quarterback than he was in college. I can just envision a world where the Buffalo Bills fall in love with a guy like Landon Jackson. You said TJ Sanders.
Mhm.
My mind goes to a Tyleek or a Darius Alexander.
Yep.
Uh,
I
I
mean
think
that they're in the same
all in
breath,
the
I
same
would
realm.
say, right?
And don't get me wrong, like I
Yep.
think TJ Sanders is totally a Billsy type of guy. I just think that I don't know if the value meets the spot there. I think he's maybe
I
more
mean,
of
I
a
agree.
top
I agree with
40
you.
guy. I'm just
Yep.
thinking if the Bills do stick at 30, like Tyleek with that national championship pedigree, a lot of people think, he is a ready-made first and second down run defender, 100%. And a lot of people believe, and I agree with them, that he can add that third down repertoire by being a better pass rusher than he was in college. Darius Alexander fits the archetype the Buffalo Bills are looking for. He's an older, more mature player, having played throughout his entire college career, all 4 years there at Toledo. So Tyleek, Darius, Landon Jackson, and I don't know why, but I'm pivoting. Not like I like Trey Amos more, but I'm pivoting in terms of like who I think the Bills are linked to. And it's going to sound really stupid, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. I don't read too many mock drafts anymore, but I've seen Mel Kiper mock Maxwell Hairston to the Bills twice. And once he did it like super early in like February. And I just feel like, not that Mel knows something, but he's the OG in this business. And he's hit on the Bills pick a couple of times and who the Bills are super interested in. And if the Bills do go secondary and the big two aren't on the board, I think Maxwell Hairston had that shoulder injury, so that run defense stuff, like they brought him in for a 30 visit. Oh, we feel more comfortable with your run support and your tackling because you were dealing with this injury. We see that you're willing on tape. He's got that blazing speed. He's got the body composition. He's got everything you're looking for. So I think a guy like Maxwell Hairston could ultimately wind up in play, not just at 30, but I think you could see a Kyrie Elam type of trade up for a guy like Maxwell Hairston. But who knows? Maybe it's
That
chalk and
wouldn't
it's
be
Trey Amos like we've been talking about for a couple of months here.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Amos, but I wouldn't be mad about
Mhm.
Hairston, and we got to pick now
We
that
got
we
to
can
pick
share it. And
in.
also, by the way, for the chat, yes, no spoilers. We'll announce it early before it gets announced on TV for everybody because I know people are looking, but we'll take care of it.
All right, the Giants add a pass rusher in Abdul Carter out of Penn State. He's got all the burst, the bend, the length, the power you need to be a featured pass rusher in the National Football League. This is great for a number of reasons if you are the Buffalo Bills. Number one, again, that rumor was floated out today that maybe they're dangling Kayvon Thibodeau to try to move back into the first round to address quarterback, which is a need for the New York Giants. And also, no Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter for the New England Patriots, who pick next, who find themselves in a very precarious position now that I think outside of Ashton Genty, all the blue chip players are now off the board. So New England might have to finger quotes. I don't want to say finger quotes reach because it's not your fault. There was only, in my opinion, 3 bona fide blue chip players in this draft, and Hunter, Carter, and Genty. So it's not your fault. You pick. Well, it is your fault. You beat the Bill. You beat the Bills week 17. You dummies. But but they're going to take Will Campbell here or Membu, or maybe they decide to shock the world and go with a defensive player. I doubt they do, but or give Ted McMillan or Matthew Golden a shot. I doubt it. My guess is they're going to go Membu or they're going to go Campbell here. The rumor is they're going to go Campbell. If that's chalk. It's going to be a good pickup for New England as they try to protect Jake May and they try to rebuild. They might be the second best team in the AFC East this year, which is just crazy. Given what we've seen the last couple of years with all the things the Jets and the Dolphins have tried to do to usurp the Buffalo Bills, but good for a number of reasons, bad because now we have an edge rusher off the board. So teams are now going to take Mike Allen. They're going to take Shamar, and that's going to take players away that the Buffalo Bills could possibly take at 30. So theoretically, it is great if they would have taken a quarterback, but at the same time.
It is. I agree. I mean, and I also agree on the Patriots, by the way. They might also have the second best head coach in the division as well. I think Vrabel was a great hire for them. I think they'll get back on track. They have there's some excitement, I would say, around that franchise again after, not many years of being bad, but a lot, what probably feels like a lot to Patriots fans, they can F off or whatever. But I will say about the picks so far, I mean, there's only been 3 picks, but there really haven't been surprises as far as who has been taken. Yes, the Jags traded up with the Browns to take Carter, but we assumed Carter would go in that pick. So, and we assumed Abdul Carter would go to the Giants unless they did something dumb. So, yes, an edge player's off the board, but still too early to say there have been any surprises. Again, there have only been 3 picks, so we'll see what the Pats do here. I do expect them to take Campbell. Offensive lineman going off the board is a good thing for the Bills, obviously. Yeah. So we certainly wouldn't expect any offensive linemen to be in play for the Bills at pick 30, with the situation they have. So let's see what happens here. I think they'll probably take Campbell. That seems pretty chalky, and yeah, we'll just kind of see what they do here.
And according to producer
I think
Chris here, the pick is in. With the 4th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, we have our first offensive lineman off the board. Hopefully this starts a run of offensive linemen, and the New England Patriots select Will Campbell out of LSU. Will Campbell obviously has been seen since, the day college football season ended as the sort of consensus number 1 overall offensive lineman / offensive tackle in this draft class. The big conversation around Will Campbell has been his short arms. I know Mike Vrabel already dealt with this issue in Tennessee when he drafted Peter Skoronski, and Skoronski ended up kicking inside. And a lot of people wanted to comp Will Campbell to a guy like Joe Thuney. So the Patriots, I'm sure, are going to let Will Campbell protect Drake May's blind side to start. But if that all falls apart, the Patriots probably have themselves a pretty good all-pro or Pro Bowl caliber guard. A pretty reasonable pick in a draft class like this at number 4 for New England. Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe they tried to trade back, but that's a pretty good pick when you have a first-round investment in Drake May that you're trying to protect.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for the Patriots, right? And I don't necessarily think that this first round for offensive linemen isn't as strong, I would say, as it has been in the past couple of years. We saw a ton of guys get picked in the last couple of drafts, but Campbell was a solid pick for them. Again, trying to build up the protection for Drake May. The Pats had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. We know that. That was, widely consensus. And just by looking at the tape, right, you could see that they were not a good offensive line. So I get it. I mean, the Pats are trying to build, from the inside out here. They did address like other positions last year with guys like Javon Baker, who we liked, um, and they have some okay pieces on defense, obviously already. And you would think at some point Vrabel's going to put his fingerprints on the defensive side of the ball in this draft, but they had to address that offensive line. They couldn't keep putting Drake May back there, and we saw what they did when they put Jacoby Brissett back there in the beginning of last year. He was just getting absolutely killed, and May did his thing with his mobility, but yeah, they had to get some protection from him. So it's a good pick, an expected pick again, not a surprise. So far, chalky. Now the reports are Browns might want to trade out again from number 5. So we'll see if they actually
they're pulling like a real, like, it doesn't shock me. Like, I mean, they are so straddled here with that Deshaun Watson contract. I mean, maybe they're just trying to really just rebuild this entire roster and retool this roster for like what 2027. Like,
I mean, and it's gravy for them right now, right? Because they got
yeah.
that haul from the Jags, and like they could still potentially get more right now. So I think again, it was a smart move by the Browns, and that's not something we say a lot about the Browns organization, but I do think so far they've been playing it pretty smartly. And if they end up trading down again and getting more picks and maybe picks for next year as well, right? Which they already got the first for next year. So we'll see if they make another move on a trade down. But I guess if you're the Browns now and you didn't take Travis Hunter at 2 and you do stay on the clock here, like who are you looking at now if you're the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Browns, they need receiver help probably, right? They got what, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman there. I'm not really looking at their depth chart. I was actually looking at New England's depth chart because I wanted to kind of take a look at what their offensive line looked like now. Left to right now, they are Will Campbell, Cole Strange, Garrett Bradbury, Michael Onwenu, and Morgan Moses. So definitely better than what they were last year for New England, but a lot of work to do.
I'll say this. The Browns depth chart is Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong Jr. at running back, Genty for the Browns. I mean, would you consider that at 5 here if you're the Browns? I mean, I would consider it.
Possibly, but the pick is in, and I know producer Chris is saying there should be a graphic for him in there, Chris. I saw it. It should be right up at the top. Sorry for the technical difficulties here, but yeah,
I do have one for him.
The Cleveland Browns with the 5th overall pick select Mason Graham out of the University of Michigan. Mason Graham, the best description to me is Braden Fiskey on steroids. I was convinced that he was going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars because the Rams and James Gladstone, who played such a role in drafting Braden Fiskey last year, had a nice little landing spot for him this year. But he goes a spot higher than that because Jacksonville traded up. Mason Graham to Cleveland. So adding a guy like that to a defensive line with Myles Garrett is a very, very scary thought. Is Mason Graham some elite blue chip level player that maybe we thought he was coming into the season? Probably not, but he's still, I think, in my opinion, the best defensive tackle in this draft and a very, very, very good football player who will be a very good football player for a long time. Interior penetrator, run stopper. Mason Graham's got it all going for him. That's a really good pick for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and so you look at what they've got right now across that defensive line, right? They have Shelby Harris and Malik Collins kind of penciled in on the interior. Obviously, they have Myles Garrett on one side. They have they went out and they signed Joe Tryon, who a guy we liked as an edge player a couple years ago to kind of add to that rotation. They still have Isaiah McGuire, who they drafted in the 4th round in 2023. So certainly seems like they're trying to fortify that interior after, making some moves on the edge with guys like Joe Tryon, and they have Myles Garrett. So I don't mind it for them. Like, the Browns, when they had been good, in the Baker Mayfield early days, and they were in the playoffs, they had their defensive line was their calling card, right? That whole defensive line for them was really, really good. They were one of the best run defenses in the league a couple years ago, and that kind of dropped off a bit, but this is a really good move, I think, for them to try to get back to that. And to me, you can make the argument that maybe Mason Graham makes a bigger impact in year 1 than a guy like Travis Hunter would for the Cleveland Browns. I'm not saying that for certainty, But I am saying for a team that's down in the doldrums like Cleveland, when you start to think about, okay, Travis Hunter versus Mason Graham, but then Travis Hunter versus Mason Graham plus on a first round pick next year, plus another second round pick this year, I think you're taking the Mason Graham plus the picks every time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that
At
was
least
a
I.
really good bargain for them there, and it'll be super interesting to see now where the Raiders go. I think one of my favorite things to see today was Pete Carroll loves to try to tip picks on social media, and he posted like a French Prince of Bel Air gif, and everyone was like sort of giving their like takes as to who that pick could be based on like the gifs and some of the things that Pete Carroll was sharing. So the Raiders are on the clock here. I know the big story over the course of the past couple of weeks was the Raiders GM son said, if you like don't draft Ashton Genty, don't talk to me anymore, Dad. So that should be really super interesting to see what the Raiders decide to do here. But they made that big move and they got Geno Smith. So it could be really interesting to see where the Raiders decide to go. We will wait on that pick, but let's go back to the Bills while we wait on that pick. And I don't know. Like, where do we go with the discourse from here, right? Like, I made a big board today. I posted it on social media. It's about 150 players deep. Some people are making fun of me. They're like, "Oh, 150 players, huh? Really, whittling it down." That's less than half the draft, guys. All right, progress for me, progress. Uh, so I had about 150 names on the big board. Not a single, and I didn't put like Travis Hunter on there because I thought he would be gone. I didn't put Abdul Carter on there because I thought he'd be gone. Like obviously, I don't put those guys on my big board. It was a Bill specific sort of big board. Not a single one of those players are gone yet. So through 5 picks, no one that I thought the Buffalo Bills realistically had a shot at getting is off the board yet. So we got that going for us at this point through 5 picks in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, again, and I think, there's no through 5 picks, right? I mean, no surprises, no, oh my goodness. Like once you start to get to 6 to 10, I think is where you might start to see like the first surprise, whether it's like, who knows, maybe the Saints take Jackson Dart at 9, right? Like you never know what they might do. But I think so far, no real surprises. The top 5 are usually, I mean, as it's obvious, the easiest 5 picks to predict in a draft. Typically. And so now as we start to get to picks 6 through 10, maybe we start to see some variance from what have been in the mocks and what people have been prognosticating. Genty certainly seems like a chalky pick as well here for the Raiders. They went out and they got Geno Smith, and it certainly feels like that kind of move you make if you're expecting to compete in that division this year. You don't sign a guy that old at quarterback or make that move at quarterback if you don't expect to compete. That's going to be a really tall order for the Raiders in that division, but again, they're trying at least. So
anyone who can give the Chiefs a hard time, I am all for it. All right, the pick is in for the son of the GM gets his wish. The Las Vegas Raiders add a premier workhorse running back to replace Josh Jacobs, and that is Ashton Genty out of Boise State. So the running back, the last of the blue chip prospects, is off the board, and now Geno Smith and Ashton Genty are the new guys behind center and in the backfield for the Las Vegas Raiders. A new day, and Pete Carroll gets his Marshawn Lynch, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like Pete Carroll's there. He's going to try to compete this year. I think the Raiders are going to be feisty, I guess is the word I'll use. It's going to be tough, but like think about this, right? Last year you had guys like Aiden O'Connell, right? You didn't know what you were doing. You had Minshew, like you had like all these revolving door at quarterback, and you arguably had the worst running back room in the NFL. And I'm saying that with conviction because you had Zamir White, you had Alexander Madison. I like Sincere McCormick. I get that, but like you had the worst running back room in the NFL if you were the Las Vegas Raiders last year. One of
With
the
no
most
quarterback.
one of the most inefficient running back rooms in the NFL last year when it comes to yards per carry as well. So you're injecting juice right now onto the offensive side of the ball if you're the Las Vegas Raiders right now. And I know you lost Devontae Adams. I get that. But Genty, Pete Carroll at the helm, Geno Smith now at quarterback. You have some good weapons. Brock Bowers, who was amazing, maybe the best tight end in the league at this point. You still have Michael Mayer at tight end, who you drafted early a couple years ago. You've got Jacoby Myers. You've got some other guys that are decent, skilled at the wide receiver position. So now, if you're the Raiders, like this makes sense to me, right?
Mhm.
And again, this could be potentially the only running back we see picked in the first round, a chalky pick.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting, right? If you're a Bills fan, the hope is somebody falls in love with Amari and Hampton, or somebody reaches for Travion Henderson, right? Like that's what you
Denver
hope.
Broncos are the team. Yeah, Denver
Yeah.
Broncos are the team I'm looking at.
Apparently the Steelers, those dummies can't get their act together. Like they're bringing in Travion for a top 30 visit. So who knows? Maybe them at
The
21,
Broncos
but
are the team I'm looking at. Yeah.
I'll,
I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin, they don't have Javonte Williams anymore. So that's the team I'm looking at to take.
Everyone talks about the Raiders wanting to get back into the first round for a quarterback to have a guy behind Geno Smith to start grooming for the future. I'm looking at their receiver depth chart, dude. It's Jacoby Myers, it's Trey Tucker, and it's some guy named Ramel Keaton.
Yeah.
At least that's what our lads
losing
has.
Devontae.
Like,
Levante's losing Devontae. So
I know Brock Bowers is practically a wide receiver and all, and they got Michael Mayer and Ian Thomas, but and they got Justin Shorter as their fourth string tight end. I know they have that, but that's a team that needs a wide receiver, something fierce. So maybe get on the line, try to trade in with the Buffalo Bills, and that could be a trade partner if they're trying to get a wide receiver like a Luther Burden or something later on in the draft, or an Emeka Buga. I don't know if Ibuka would fit kind of what they're looking for, because they already got Jacoby Myers, but if they're looking at a receiver later on in this draft, maybe they're willing to give you something nice to move back up into the first round, and you can get a second and you can get a third round pick. I don't know if they want to trade that much capital, but it'll be interesting to see if now that is something to keep an eye on if you're the Buffalo Bills in those trade back scenarios. But we have the Jets on the clock now. This should be fun, right? A new era in New York. Justin Fields is their starting quarterback. Aaron Glenn is their head coach. To me, I would take the left tackle. I would take Membu here. But what are your thoughts on what the Jets could go out and do? I know they got Alu Fash now last year, so it'll be interesting to see where they decide to go.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets are, who knows what direction they're going to go now here with Aaron Glenn. Like, you would assume that they maybe would want to make a splash on the defensive side of the ball, but in reality is they have some pretty good defensive players that they've invested draft capital into over the last several years. So then you turn to the offense, right? And you've got Garrett Wilson there. You've got Fashanu, who you drafted last year. But then you start to look at sort of what you have across the rest of the defense or offensive line. And right now you have Carter Warren penciled in, a fourth rounder from 2023 as your starting right tackle. To me, a pair of first round tackles in back-to-back years seems like a pretty good recipe if you're the New York Jets and if you're wanting to build that lineup. And look, we saw the Lions do it. Maybe what?
Maybe corner? For
the other thing that people were talking about were the Jets was like Tyler Warren, right? Or Colston Loveland, like a tight end.
Yeah, there we go.
So that was another popular one I saw. They didn't want to go offensive line. I saw a lot of Tyler Warren in mock drafts to the Jets. I saw a few Colston Lovelands, but I would assume it would be Tyler Warren. Their depth chart at tight end right now, you've got Jeremy Ruckert as penciled in as your number one. What's his name, who was pretty decent for them last year, is not there anymore, Conklin. So tight end could also be an interesting one for them if they want to kind of round out the offensive skill positions, because you got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, round out the offensive skill positions, maybe with a tight end for a guy like Justin Fields, and we'll see, right? So it'll be interesting to see if they go O-line tight end. Either way, if they go O-line tight end, that's fine for the Bills. And it will be a solid pick for the Jets, but I would, as a Bills fan, I'd almost rather them go for the offensive lineman, because I do think one of those tight ends could be pretty impactful in year one. We've seen tight ends make an impact recently in early round.
It'd be crazy to see a running back and a tight end go back to back in the top 10. But that's just honestly, that goes to show you what this draft class is like, because again, my board that I created is Bills specific. It's not NFL specific. And we got a message here from Chris. The Jets pick is in. So we'll talk about that We'll get. With the 7th pick, the Jets take a tackle. It's Armand Membu out of the University of Missouri. So again, another pretty chalk pick here. Olu Fashnow, Armand Membu. They are building the exterior of that offensive line to go along with the interior, where they have Joe Tippmann at center and Simpson and Vera Tucker at guard. So very Detroit Lion-y approach. I'm not saying that Armand Membu is Penei Sewell or anything like that. It's not what this kind of draft class is. But Aaron Glenn taking a page out of that Detroit Lions playbook here with the 7th overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good pick for the Jets, right? They've really now kind of in a year's time, 2 years' time, kind of phased out those sort of stopgap veterans that they had with Moses, right, last year, and they've now kind of bookended that offensive line with 2 first-round tackles, right, in Fashanu now and in Membu, and then they have the first-round guard and Vera Tucker, the second-round center and Joe Tippmann, and they signed John Simpson, obviously, from Baltimore a year ago, who's still penciled in as their left guard for the veteran leadership on that line. I will say I am impressed with the Jets offensive line now if this kind of works out for them. They a couple years ago were in big trouble. You know, Becton was the pick they had made a couple years back. It wasn't really working out for them. They moved on from that and kind of I think for them that was a good move, right, to cut their losses there. And I do like the makeup of the Jets offensive line right now, and it kind of makes me a little sick to say that, but it looks pretty good. I think this was a smart and heady pick for the Jets, and yeah, it was a good one to round out that offensive line.
Back to the overall draft board, right? Like this year's draft, like Cam Ward, you can argue whether or not he deserved to be the first overall pick or whether he's a first round quarterback, like whatever. But if you compare him to last year's class, he's probably in the Bo Nix, Michael Penix territory more so than he is the top 3 guys that went. When you look at Membu and Will Campbell, they might have been the 5th, 6th, 7th, guys off the board last year. Will Campbell might not have even gotten a consideration at tackle. A team might have drafted him to go straight to guard with how deep last year's class was at tackle. These premium positions, you don't have sort of the premium blue chippers this year, or even like a wealth of really it type of first round caliber guys. The teams that are going to be smart in this draft are the teams that are going to exploit the fact that this is an uncommon draft, that running backs can go in the top 10, that tight ends could possibly go in the top 10. I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball, and I'm looking at Jalen Walker and Jihad Campbell, 2 untraditional type of guys who I think are top 15 talents in this draft. Malachi Starks, going back to him, I think he's a top 15 talent in this draft. No one is with me, but I will argue Xavier Watts is a top 20 talent in this draft, and I don't think he gets the love and appreciation he deserves. I think the teams that are going to be successful in this draft are going to be the teams that are willing to draft players. And I think you could throw Tyler Booker and the guard from Ohio State in here into this conversation as well, depending on what your scheme is. And I'm not saying the Bills should take a guard. I'm just saying teams in general. The teams that are like, all right, positional value be damned, I'm going to take the best player on the board. I think you're getting really good value, because while some teams reach for a tackle that would be the 7th or 8th tackle off the board last year and making them the 2nd tackle off the board this year, there are guys who I think are blue chip players or premium players at non-traditional positions that could really slip to around 30. Jihad Campbell, Malachi Starks. People don't want to hear it, but Xavier Watts. Like to me, I just think people need to have a little bit more of an open mind to it. I think the easiest one to wrap your head around is Malachi Starks, especially with that conversation today that he let it be known that teams are talking to him about playing nickel and boundary corner, which is crazy to me, but like a little Dax Hill situation.
Well, I find it interesting, right? Because when you start to get into like the 20s and you start to look at teams and what their needs are, like the Steelers obviously need a quarterback, but if a quarterback's not going to be someone that they take at 21, like they may be a team that would take the best player available. Mike Tomlin may say, we want the best player available. We're not going to get our quarterback here. So I think it's going to be interesting as teams start weighing, as we move on, potential need versus talent, and if that type of thing will play itself out to where a player like that falls to the Bills at 30, where the talent is just sticking out on the board, and you just really, if you're Brandon Beane, don't, not that you don't have a choice, but it's just like it's almost too hard to pass up in that scenario, right? But you wonder if a
Mhm.
few teams ahead of the Bills might be thinking the same thing. Some of these teams that don't have a ton of holes on their roster either, or they do have holes on their roster, but the position they need is not there and the value's not there. And we talked about that a little bit for the Bills when you did that exercise yesterday. That could happen to some teams, like teams that don't need defensive line, for example, right? Or teams that don't need offensive line. Like
At,
it's going to
at,
be very interesting.
almost every single team before us in the 20s needs a corner. Almost every team.
Yep.
Almost every
Yep.
team. Like,
Yep.
so like
And that's probably why the Vikings
I
may not trade with us, because they could use a
yeah,
corner.
because I will admit, and some people are like, well, it's really easy to have a board that falls like that when you rig it that way. 100%. Like I understand that I went to the extremes with that exercise, but like legitimately every team that I shipped a corner to has a need for corner, and that guy was a schematic fit with that. Like I sent Easy Thomas to Minnesota, sticky man corner. Brian Flores makes perfect sense. Savone Revel, physical freak. Jonathan Gannon, he used to have those dogs when he was back in Philly. Like makes sense. Like so again, if the Buffalo Bills don't move up and they're at 30, I think we're going to see a drastically different board than a lot of these simulators are sort of a lot of these simulators are sort of, providing to people. That's why we stopped
Mhm.
really doing mock drafts on this show. Now, the Panthers pick is in, and I think this is where it's going to get really interesting. The chalk pick here, and this has been a chalky draft so far, has been Jalen Walker. And Jalen Walker is one of these like blue chip players. Jalen Walker scares me because I just don't know what to do with Jalen Walker. Like, I don't. Like, he's got those short arms. Is he a linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Like, what do you do with him? Like, he's kind of like that Frankie Louvu mold. So to me, if the Panthers don't take Jalen Walker here, you could see a Jalen Walker slide, and then that conversation becomes super interesting. Of another, I think, I don't want to say blue chip, but like premier type of player who could be sliding. And you could also get Tet McMillan going here. And if Tet McMillan goes here, now is Matthew Golden in play for somebody else that wouldn't have been in play for previous to this? So a whole bunch of ramifications here for the Panthers. Their pick is in. With the eighth pick, the Carolina Panthers decide to add another possession, a big body possession receiver in Tet McMillan to go along with the big bodies they already have. I guess Xavier Legette has got that speed, even though he didn't really show it last year. Still have faith in Xavier Legette, but Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, Tet McMillan, a lot of size now in that Carolina receiver room for, ironically, Bryce Young, who's just going to close his eyes and throw the ball up, I guess, to some of these guys. But the popular comp for Tet McMillan is T. Higgins. A lot of people argue, like, in any other year, would a guy like Tet McMillan be a top 10 talent? But this is a guy who has produced for multiple years. He is an early declared junior. To me, I think he's going to be a very solid receiver in the National Football League, put up 800 to 1,100 yards, push double-digit touchdowns, obviously dependent on the quarterback situation and the offense and the stability. All receivers are really dependent on that. But I think this is a nice little pick here. The Jalen Walker conversation now gets interesting, though.
The Jalen Walker conversation does get interesting. It's a look, I get what the Panthers are trying to do here, right? You saw really good progress from Bryce Young in the second half of last year after you kind of made those switches throughout the year. You brought in Andy Dalton, then you went back to Bryce Young. He really finished the season out pretty well, showed you something in the second half of the year, built that chemistry up with Xavier Legette. Adam Thielen's getting older. He's still there. I get that, but eventually he's going to be gone. You have some other nice players at receiver like Coker and who contributed last year. You have David Moore, this journeyman. You need to kind of pair someone for the future with Xavier Legette and kind of invest in weapons for Bryce Young. The Panthers have had, haven't had a lot of chances to do that with all the capital they've given up over the past couple of years just to get Bryce Young. So now starting to be able to recoup that a little bit. I'm not sure what Tet McMillan's going to be in the NFL. I think he benefited from it being a weaker top end wide receiver class going in the top
100%.
10 here. 100%. I think he's good. Is he going to be as good as any of the guys taken in the first round last year? I don't know. So I like it from what the Panthers are trying to do. I hope it works out for them. Obviously, I'm in Panthers country here in North Carolina. Their fans have really, I mean, they're so down, man. But the Bryce Young kind of surge at the end of last year gave them a glimmer of hope. So now, like, maybe they can start to, mend and recover a bit from the trades that they had in the past to get this guy. And now that they have Tet McMillan to pair with Xavier, we'll see. We'll see if it works out. I hope it does, but I'm not sold on him.
I liked what, like, I think he's T. Higgins-esh. Like I think he's in that mold. If T. Higgins was, if you knew that this guy was going to turn to T. Higgins or using a top 10 pick on him, I think most people might.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like, yeah, I guess. Like, I don't know if he'd be like a top 5 pick because we
Top
still
15.
haven't seen T. Higgins without a Jamar Chase. Like, right. Like, we still haven't seen him live in a world like that. But at the end of the day, though, I don't know, like this Carolina building plan, for all of Brandon Beane's warts, right? Like he has built a very competitive football team that has been very competitive, and he's been relatively smart. Some of his disciples are just doing some dumb stuff, like Joe Shane doing some dumb stuff in New York, Dan Morgan doing some like dumb stuff in Carolina, trading all that capital for Bryce Young and all these things. So it's interesting. Like I thought they were going to go defense here. Like I thought Carolina was like, all right, let's change the culture. Let's get some defensive players in here. The offense was adequate last year. Like let's go. Let's help that unit out. And no, they just decided to add a receiver. Like, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens in Carolina this year. That's number one. And number two, where the draft goes from here, because we're now 8 picks through on this draft. Mm-hmm. None of the players from my big board have been taken yet. Obviously, I didn't put some of the major, like Travis Hunter would be great for the Bills. Didn't put him on my big board. I knew he would be gone. So at this point, anyone who I thought might be a realistic or a semi-realistic or even like a pipe dream option for the Buffalo Bills, still on my big board. But now here's where it gets interesting. If you're New Orleans, do you go with an offensive lineman like Kelvin Banks? Do you go with a wide receiver like Matthew Golden? They were sort of rumored to be in the Tet mix. So it's going to be really interesting to see the decision that New Orleans makes here. But there is a chance that we could see the first player from my big board and maybe the first player that Bills fans were like, shoot, I thought maybe in our wildest dreams we could have gotten this guy. Could come off the board here. I think a corner with Paulson Adebo leaving, like a Will Johnson or a Janae Barron, could be an option here for New Orleans as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I would say Tet McMillan is the first like mini surprise of the draft so far, but like in the area
so.
Well,
other than the trade.
Right. I mean, as far as like players and when they're slot, like when they've been slotted to get picked. The Saints one is interesting, right? Because wide receiver, it all depends on what they think the future will be for Chris Olave with them, right? Because you have Shaheed, you signed Brandon Cooks, you have Olave, you have guys like Bub Means in the wings, you have Mason
size what was missing. Other than Bub Means, size is what was missing. So Tet made the most sense there.
Tet made the most sense. You have a pretty solid offensive line already. You have multiple first-round picks across that offensive line with Fuaga, with Penning, with Ruiz. You have McCoy at center. So then you kind of start to look at the defensive side of the ball. They signed Godchow to fill in that gap in the middle. They drafted Brian Brees in 2023. They still have Chase Young at the edge. But, where are they going to go on the defensive side of the ball? Right now, they got Kool-Aid McKinstry slotted in at one side, and they have a guy named Isaac Yaiden slotted in as their number 2 corner. So to me, I mean, I think corner makes a ton of sense here if you're the Saints, and that would, obviously be a position that we're interested in.
Pick is in,
that
baby.
would be something that, okay, let's see.
Start a run, please. If you are a team in need of offensive line help, trade up, start taking them off the board. Take as many offensive linemen off the board before you get to pick 30. Calvin Banks Jr. goes to the New Orleans Saints. In my opinion, I really like Calvin Banks Jr. as a guard. Like when I was going through and making my big board today, I started doing more research on some other position groups because I wanted to smatter in some offensive linemen and things like that. And just some of the basic level research I did into Calvin Banks Jr. today tells me that, like, I think he really has the movement skills to be a really quality guard, someone that a guy like Aaron Cromer would love to get his hands on. But as a tackle, I think this could be another big yikes for New Orleans, who just keeps swinging and missing, I think, in the draft between Trevor Penning and all these other, some of these other picks that they're making and all the money and the Derek Carr issues. That franchise is an absolute mess. And it's going to be really interesting to see. If I were them, I would have tried to trade out of that pick. I would have added another position. I don't know. I don't like the
I would have
pick.
taken I would have taken a corner there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have maybe taken Jahdae Barron there if I was the Saints. I mean, here's the thing. They got Dylan Radoon slotted in right now as their left guard. If they plan, like I said in the chat, slots in at left guard, if they think that he is going to be a guard, then okay. But like a guy like Booker was a bit like, I mean, too high to take Booker, I think maybe. But like, what are they going to do with Banks? Are they going to put him? I mean, they've got Fuaga, who they drafted in the first round last year as their left tackle, and they have Penning at right tackle, who they drafted in the first round.
They've taken an offensive.
So
they have literally taken an offensive lineman in the first round, 3 of the last 4 drafts.
So is Penning's time maybe over? I don't know. Are they going to slide him in at left guard
to protect Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't know. It's I'm fine with the pick from a Bills perspective.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
More offensive linemen off the board, the better. But it is a weird move for the New Orleans Saints. I don't really understand the vision on what they're doing. The only thing I can think is that they're trying to figure that they're going to slot him in at left guard, then maybe. Because you've got McCoy at center, you've got Ruiz at right guard. I mean, the only options I really see are sliding him in at left guard, or
just replacing Penning. They didn't pick up his
or
option.
replacing Penning at right tackle. Yeah, those are the 2 options. Yeah. So,
and Ryan Ramczyk medically retired. They're eating all that money too. Like, that team is just such a mess. Next up is the Bears. This is where it kind of gets interesting. They rebuilt their offensive line. I thought this would have been a great spot for Ashton Genty. If they want to reach for like an Amarian Hampton here or a Travion Henderson, I would love that. If they wanted to go running back, they could probably use a receiver. They got Romo Dunes, they got DJ Moore, but their slot receiver right now is Olamide Zaccheaus. So if they want to add like an Emeka Ibuka here, maybe that could be something. Looking over at the defensive side of the ball, they could probably use a corner, Tyreek Stevenson. I think Will Johnson might be a safe pick for them here. I know he's got the medical, but I do know the Bears officials were on hand at the Michigan Pro Day, and they had a pretty big contingent there. So Will Johnson makes a lot of sense here. They added a lot of big free agents on the defensive line. Don't know if they want to go there. Will Johnson makes so much sense here for the Bears. Maybe Matthew Golden or a receiver. I don't know. Where do you think the Bears go here? Do you think they finally take somebody off of a Bills big board here?
I could see it, right? You start to look, they went out, they got Joe Thuney, right? They got Drew Dahlman, they got Jonah Jack. Like, they really solidified that offensive line. You drafted Odunze last year in the first round. You got DJ Moore. Behind those guys at receiver, like, you signed Zaccheaus, right? As a free agent from Washington. You got Duvernay there. You still have Tyler Scott. The receiver room's kind of full. I mean, it wouldn't stop them from taking a guy, but I don't know that that's a priority for them. I think corner looks like a priority. Where you got Tyreek Stevenson.
Oh, a tight end to go with Cole Kmet.
A tight end, maybe. They signed Durham Smythe. They have Kmet as the first guy there, maybe. But I mean, corner does make sense the way I'm looking at their depth chart. But Tyreek Stevenson was a 2nd-round pick in 2023, so it's like, are they going to give up on?
Pick
him?
is in. Pick is in.
All right, let's see it.
keep on taking these players that are not of a position of immediate need for the Buffalo Bills. The Chicago Bears select Colston Loveland. Hey, I told you they were on hand at that Michigan Pro Day. Tight
Yeah.
out of Michigan, kind of a slot receiver, right? Like I can envision a world where Cole Kmet lines up as your sort of 11 personnel tight end, Roma Dunze, DJ Moore on the boundary, and a guy like Colston Level in the slot. You have the opportunity to go 12 personnel between him and Cole Kmet. I think that gives Ben Johnson a lot of resources. I know some people are going to be surprised that it's before Ty Warren, but if you look at it, athletically speaking, Colston Loveland's got a leg up on a guy like Ty Warren. So doesn't shock me that Colston Loveland goes first. The upside is higher, but the people in the comment section are saying like Warren is the better tight end. That's accurate right now. But I think what the Chicago Bears are thinking about here is the ceiling and thinking about using him as that slot receiver to give Caleb Williams a nice little slot target.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, like the fact of the matter is like you've got an athletic tight end in Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet's kind of a do-it-all tight end. He's a good blocker. He's a good receiver. Not as fluid, maybe, as a guy like Loveland, I think, as a receiving option. So I think it's a nice pairing, to be honest. The Loveland and a Cole Kmet is a really nice pairing. And you had Smythe, who you signed as a free agent. So you kind of got the blocking side covered with a guy like Durham Smythe signing. So yeah, it's an interesting pick for the Bears, but I think it's a pretty good value for them. Look, in recent years, tight ends have shown that they can produce in year one. Laporta, Kincaid, Bowers, like all these guys produced their rookie years, and the Bears, right, with Caleb Williams, new regime, like trying to continue to put guys around Caleb Williams after drafting Odunze last year. They have the makings of a pretty nice offensive room there, right? DeAndre Swift is coming back as the running back. Like it's going to be an interesting NFC North again, I think, in 2025. One of the most exciting and kind of fun divisions to follow last year will continue to be fun to follow this year. And yeah, it's a good pick for the Bears, I think. I think you'll see a lot of people, maybe some analysts, kind of pan the pick just based on the fact that Tyler Warren was still available. But as a fit, you can make the argument that it's a better fit for the Bears to go for a guy like Loveland.
And the next pick, I don't know, Chris, if you've seen this or not, is in, and we'll get to that whenever Chris is ready. But the San Francisco 49ers have made their pick, and first player on my Buffalo Bills draft board is going to come off the board when we get to it. The San Francisco 49ers take the first player that was on my big board as maybe a potential Buffalo Bills draft pick. Obviously, it was a long shot. It's Maxwell Williams out of the University of Georgia. Really reminds me a lot of Gregory Rousseau. This is a length and strength defensive end, very highly sought after high school recruit, obviously going to the University of Georgia, dealt with an ankle injury most of the year, which really hampered his sort of statistical output. But once he got healthy for the college football playoff, he went on a tear, having 2 sacks in that Sugar Bowl game. Maxwell Williams, I think, is going to have a career very, very similar to Gregory Rousseau. I think his fit in San Francisco makes a lot of sense. Very good football player. He was my number 3 player on my big board as a potential Buffalo Bill, behind Mike Green and behind Malachi Stark. So Maxwell Williams off the board, and the first edge rusher after Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a 49ers pick, I feel like, right? This is a John Lynch pick through and through. I mean, this guy's not even 21 years old yet. He's still played 3 years, won a national championship with Georgia, made an impact. Obviously, the sack production numbers aren't jumping off the page, but a guy that Kirby Smart repeatedly threw praise on. And out of all the players on that Georgia team, then there's tons of NFL talent that are going to get drafted tonight and later on in the draft. And over the past 2 to 3 years, he really singled out Maxwell Williams as being a guy that had amazing work ethic and really wanted to help that team. I think it's just, yeah, he would have been a great culture fit in the Bills locker room, but for the 49ers to get a guy like this, happy he's in the NFC, happy he's not on an AFC team, happy a team like the Dolphins or someone like that didn't come up right now and get him. But Really good pick for the Niners, and I think a great fit for them too. I think, yeah, they'll be really happy with Michael. A big fan of him personally too. It just seems like a great guy.
Like I said, he was number 3 on my board here. Obviously, massive pipe dream, as Pete Nana said. But I thought I could envision a world where maybe he slipped into like the low 20s and the Bills could trade up for him. But that was not the case. He goes at pick number 11, and now the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Jerry Jones is losing it. He is the GM of that football franchise. He was going on some like nonsensical rambling about taking a quarterback at 12 the other day. Like, the man makes no sense. So who knows what the Dallas Cowboys could do here? I think one that makes a lot of sense for them is Matthew Golden. Get yourself a boundary receiver to complement CeeDee Lamb and to help Dak Prescott out. So Matthew Golden makes a lot of sense here. Texas guy, right? Dallas Cowboys, but it'll be interesting to see if I guess maybe the third receiver comes off the board here in Matthew Golden, if you want to count Travis Hunter as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so obvious, right? Texas, like Jerry Jones likes the shiny toys always.
But is it too obvious? Could he go Marion Hampton or Travion Henderson here? Could he just really?
Hey, they already signed Jerry. They already signed the UNC running back in Javonte Williams in free agency. They don't need to get
their roster construction is mind-boggling to me. I say this about like a lot of franchises. Like I get it. Like they're professionals and I'm not, but like the roster, I don't know if the Cowboys are professionals, but their roster construction. Dude, like their offense right now is Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders splitting carries in the backfield. And complimenting CeeDee Lamb is Jalen Tolbert and Jonathan Mingo. Like, what their offensive line left to right is Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Brock Hoffman, and Terrence Steele. So they have an issue at right guard as well. It'll be really interesting to see. Zach Hilton says, kid says, thanks for on the clock. Go Bills and good night. Thank you, Zach, for the super chat. I always appreciate you.
Putting on the clock as my my display name here to help things out. Using what we've got available to us.
There we go. Yeah, I didn't even know she did that. I was so locked in to refreshing Ari Mirov's feed to see if the Dallas Cowboys pick comes in and looking at their depth chart here. Yeah, the Cowboys are just so weird, man. I don't understand that franchise. And then hiring Brian Schottenheimer, I just okay.
It's such a Cowboys thing, though, right? It's like
they signed Dante Fowler Jr. I had no idea they signed Dante Fowler Jr.
Yeah, like him, but like you just came off of McCarthy, right? And like now, like I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see. Again, one player off of my Buffalo Bills big board, and really I should call my first like 10 picks my dream board, right? One of like the 10 guys off my dream board is gone in Michael Williams. Let's see if another one comes off the board here as Dallas takes their sweet time. Maybe Jerry's just going to let the clock run through and just let another team draft the guy in front of them. I don't even know. I don't have the TV on how many minutes they got left to make this. Oh, they're still in the 49ers pick here on television. So
yeah, they're way behind on ESPN is where I'm watching it. They still have.
Let's have a brief conversation here. And I want the comment section to chime in as well. And maybe you guys are the wrong people to be talking to because you're watching us, but I don't know, man. Like the draft, is it really like that whole spectacle and thing that they want to try to turn it into with like music and performances and all? Do people really care about that? Like, do they really need all of that? Like, if you just had like 6 dudes in a room breaking down each prospects as the prospects were picked, you could probably save yourself millions of dollars. And I'm pretty sure just as many people would watch, right? Like,
didn't they do that like 10 years ago? Like they had an alternate channel that was like, it was like ESPN was showing the draft, but like ESPN2 had like the
just had like the talking picks, bro. And that was on day 3 because day 3 for ESPN always got like, let's interview the players and let's do this. And like, I know I haven't paid too much attention to it, but ABC does like the more personalized commercial broadcast and ESPN does the more traditional broadcast. But I think that's Friday, Saturday. I think it might just be simulcasting the same thing on both channels tonight. But I could be wrong. I know Pat McAfee's got a channel now. You can watch Pat McAfee talk about the draft if you want to. Last year, there was a lot of clippable moments because he had Bill Belichick. I don't know if he's got that kind of pull this year to get somebody of that power. But I just feel like just get like 3 guys who know ball in a room, go pick by pick, talk about how that prospect fits into the team that is selecting them, show their clips, and move on to the next guy. Like, I don't think it's that hard. And again, I'm not a TV executive. They clearly know how to make more money than I do. But like, I don't get it. I feel like they make it more of a spectacle than it needs to be. I think it's going to drive the ratings no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got the purists, the football purists, and the real football fans that don't really need that stuff. And I don't think they have to worry about those people, right? Because I think they know those
Yeah.
people are going to tune into the draft no matter what. I think they're
Well,
trying to get,
those people are turning out. Those people are tuning out. They're tuning into to places like
yeah,
us.
which is good for us. Like, can you imagine if Cover One did like a simulcast where it was like the we were kind of like the Trey Wingo and whoever, and like
Mhm.
Eric and Anthony, and like they did like a film, like they had like a film thing going on at the same time as like the draft. And like, so we kind of eat our own viewership, but like that would be something if Cover One ever
Yeah.
got big enough, we could have like a simulcast coverage like that. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what you're talking about. Because yeah, they did do it at one point. I remember like it was like Hasselbeck and a couple other people were in the room together, like talking about the
Well,
prospects. And
they used to just let Mel be Mel. Like,
yeah,
I feel like they've even like phased Mel out a bit, and like they're bringing in like no one gives a shit what Booger McFarland has to say about anything. Like, why is Booger there? Like, Adam Schefter is like taking over. Like, you really need Adam Schefter there. Just put him back in the corner on his cell phone like he was for the last 10 years. He doesn't.
yeah, I don't know why you need
Uh,
Adam Schefter. Like, he's not an analyst. Like, he's just breaking. Like, he can still report news. Like, fine, cut to
mhm.
him when there's like a trade or something. But
They've tried to make
yeah,
him more of like a presence, like giving his opinions on things. I'm just like, why? Why? I don't understand that either. So it'll be super interesting to see, as there just seems to be a lull here. Maybe the National Football League told them to like chill out and slow down. I don't know what's going on, but we got a little bit of a lull here. But looking at it, Dave, looking at the 49ers pick is just announced on TV. So now the Cowboys are on the clock, I guess. I don't know. So looking at it, though, we still have the 3 big DTs on the board. Let's get back to football here.
hmm
3 big DTs on the
hmm
board. Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan. To me, those are the 3 big DTs. Some people might.
hmm
I know there's a lot of non-Walter Nolan people out there. I'm one of the Walter Nolan purists. I have him number 1 above Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant. You have the 2 big corners still on the board: Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron. Obviously, Jahdae Barron's got the size limitations, the length limitations. Is he a boundary corner or not question? He is, but the question about whether he is or not. And you got Will Johnson with the knee injury that will not affect him in the short term, but may affect him in the long term, like a second contract is the reports that are out there. So Shamar Stewart still out there for those of you who like the Myles Garrett build, but not the Myles Garrett play. And you got Mike Green out there and Matthew Golden out there. So there's still some blue chippers out here. Looking at
hmm
who's coming up in these next couple of picks here,
hmm
who do we think is surviving from this group of what appears to be the premier players left?
Who is surviving? Wow.
Hold on, the Cowboys pick is it? You gotta love it. Like, no, I don't mind this pick because their right guard next year is going to be Brock Hoffman, and I think that that's a quality pick. If they had a running back, maybe they'll take one in the second round. But Tyler Booker goes to the Dallas Cowboys here. The run on offensive lineman continues. It again. I did not do any work on offensive linemen this year for the most part. I went through today and I did some very basic research to, number 1, prepare for the show, and number 2, see if there were any guys that maybe in the middle rounds the Bills might want to take if they had a couple extra picks lying around to develop with Connor McGovern, David Edwards on expiring contracts. It's not a deep class. There are some decent players, like Tyler Booker is a decent player. There are decent players. But at the end of the day, it's not a very deep class. And I think you can smell the desperation from some of these franchises right now, because any other year, the Dallas Cowboys are taking another player and getting their starting guard in the second or the third round. That might not be the case for them this year. So Tyler Booker to the Dallas Cowboys. Keep taking offensive linemen, please. Please.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Tyler Booker, by all consensus, the best number one guard in this draft, right? I mean, Dane Brugler had him as his number one guard. Dane Brugler had him as his 24th overall prospect. And so 24th overall prospect as his number one guard. So, that's not bad, right? That's not bad for where you slot in maybe the best guard in the draft. That's decent. That's pretty high. Cowboys obviously here picking, we're not going to have a chance to get Tyler Booker with their next pick, but 12th overall is very early for a guard. And the pick does feel like desperation. It does feel like with how long it took, maybe they were trying to field some trade offers and nothing really materialized. For what they need, it's a good pick, but for where they got it, seems like an overpay. I get it. It's not a great top heavy guard class, but yeah, I mean, that's fine. Keep the offensive lineman coming off the board.
It's like we're there. It's just like, what's what I'm looking for here? It's like, oh, we want to be this team. We want to be physical. We want to be balanced. We don't want to have Dak Prescott throw the ball 50 times a game. Like, I understand all that, but you're going to run Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders behind that offensive line. Don't get me wrong. I loved Javonte back in the day, but clearly that knee injury really just zapped what made him so special. And he's still a decent running back. Miles Sanders is, I don't think Miles Sanders is ever a good running back. And he's just absolutely washed at this point. You got Deuce Vaughn, who's literally the size of my 2-year-old daughter. That's what you have in the backfield. So again, deep running back class, maybe they get their running back later, but now you're using all of these resources you have on building a running game when you really don't have much at the wide. I just don't know what Dallas is doing. Yeah, you're right. Trading back would have been a great option for them. Whether they had that option or not, I don't know. But
I bet they were trying
to. Yeah,
I'm sure they were trying to, based on how long they were on the clock. Now Miami's up, and so Miami could take an offensive lineman, right? They could take a tackle.
Yeah.
But you look at Miami, they kind of need help in other places as well, right? What I worry about here with Miami is beef in the middle. They need it too, right? They have Siler, but I feel like they could use some beef in the middle as well, and that's kind of what worries me.
Every yeyear Miami's going to take an offensive lineman. They're finally going to do it. They're finally going to do it, and they never do it. So until I see it happening here, I'll believe it when I see it. Miami. When's the last time they took Austin Jackson? Was that the last major investment they made on the offensive line in the draft?
I mean, and what was it? Eichenberg they took in the first round, right? A couple years ago.
I don't think it was the first round. I might have been on round 2.
But yes, Simmons, I like what Pete's saying. They could use someone. Yeah, Eichenberg was round 2. You're right. So they got Patrick Paul, second rounder from last year, slotted in at left tackle. They got Eichenberg, second rounder from 21.
Jahdae Barron makes a lot of sense. I think Jahdae Barron, because he could play corner or he could play safety.
That's true. They have Duck Storm slotted in right now as their left corner, opposite of Jalen Ramsey. So
obviously Will Johnson.
Will Johnson's out there. Yeah, so to me, Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron makes sense. Simmons at tackle makes sense to me as well from Ohio State. I could see that if they decide to go with offensive line. I could see that making sense. I could also see them going beef on the interior defensive line as well, potentially. So there's a lot of ways Miami can go here, and hopefully we avoid a guy that we are.
Yeah, Malachi Starks here. Please don't. It'll break my heart. But your boy let us. That was an all-time quote from Chris Greer, by the way. You're more worried about the offensive line than we are, by the way. Miami looks like it's going to be in full tear down mode though. It looks
so
like
weird.
Jalen Ramsey, good luck. It looks like they're maybe trying to unload Tyreek Hill, good luck. But that is just an organization that just is without a paddle right now. And to me, it's an organization. They could grab Tyler Warren here. That's another position that they've ignored. Tight end,
although Jonnu Smith was really good for them last year. I mean, hate to say it, but he was.
Mike McDaniel comes from that Kyle Shanahan tree, but he wasn't trying to build what Kyle Shanahan was building. He was trying to build a track team. He wasn't trying to add a Trent Williams type of left tackle. He wasn't trying to add a George Kittle type of tight end. Every year I'm when are they going to add some kind of gritty guy who can inline block and go out and catch a pass type tight end? They just never did it. So the way they've constructed that roster in Miami is not like how San Francisco constructed their rosters. It's they just were trying to run a track meet. I think they really took on sort of embodied like sort of their head coach and that sort of like superficial mold that they were building for themselves. So it'll be interesting to see where they go here. I'm hoping it's offensive line. I really do not want them to take a secondary player off the board. That would be not great for us. Like I said, so far my big board,
Will Johnson was a very popular player for Miami in mock draft. So just, I mean, whatever that means, but he was very popular.
I put some pipe dream players on my big board, like Shamar Turner, Derek Carman, Will Johnson, Janae Barron. Like I put some what I thought were Matthew Golden, like pipe dream players on my big board. We are 12 picks into the draft, and one of them, Mykal Williams, is off the board. So this is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah. But the problem is there's 18 more picks before the build. So one of those, a lot of those guys are going to, I think.
Don't rain on my
parade. I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but man, it feels like
it could be worse.
Know. It could be worse. It could be worse.
We could be 6 guys down with 18 picks to go.
It's true. That's true. Yeah, but they could definitely go a lot of different directions. I think like if they're trying to look to the future, then maybe they would go for a guy like Warren, right? Because they're, you know, they're not going to necessarily maybe compete. But I also could see them going beef in the middle, right? Like I said from the very start, because they don't have anybody except Seiler in the middle, and they got trounced in the run game last year. So
the pick is in Bills Mafia. The pick is in Bills Mafia, Chris. I don't know if you go to Draft Diamond's Twitter, it's been leaked, and it's this is going to be a heartbreaker for you, Bills Mafia. I'm going to feel for you when we announce this pick here for the Miami Dolphins. A dream has died today. Chris, do you see the pick?
You put it into the universe. That's the problem.
I am. You put it into the universe, not me. You put it in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's my fault.
With the 13th, 13th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins select Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. The dream is dead, Bills Mafia. I know a lot of simulators told you Kenneth Grant was a reality at 30, but the further we got along into this draft process, here's what I'll say. Like right now, in my opinion, Walter Nolan and Derek Harmon are better defensive tackles than Kenneth Grant. But you have an instant impact run defender, space eater in Kenneth Grant. You have a guy who literally is just absolute Bruce Feldman freak list. And you have a guy who has the upside to be a Chris Jones type of pass rusher if it all clicks for him. It has to click for him. Right now, he's just a good run defender. But if it clicks for him, he can be that Chris Jones type of real presence for you in the middle of a defense. So Kenneth Grant goes to Miami. A dream is dead for a lot of people in Bills Mafia. If you're looking for a defensive tackle now, we are pivoting, and that pivot is to a Walter Nolan or a Derek Harmon, or maybe it's, hey, let's go address DB now, and let's get into that second phase of DTs like a Tyleek Williams or a Darius Alexander or a TJ Sanders or a Joshua Farmer and Alfred Collins.
Yeah, and I think you start to talk about guys like Harmon and Nolan become real commodities now as you kind of lead up to pick 30, right? Because I think after those two guys,
if we collectively as a society let Howie Roseman get Malachi Starks or Walter Nolan, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, well, you know, these things tend to fall in Howie Roseman's lap year after year, so wouldn't surprise me. Now the Colts are on the clock, and you know, the Colts,
do it.
Yeah, I mean they've been struggling to produce from the tight end position. I don't necessarily think it's because, well, they didn't have a ton of talent. They've had some injury issues as well at tight end. The Colts have, but the reality is like Mo Alley Cox, Will Mallory. I mean, Jelani Woods obviously had the injury history. They're hoping for him to actually finally come back. They just don't target the tight end position in that offense. And, you know, we'll see what happens with Anthony Richardson this year, but they could really use some kind of easy check down option for Anthony Richardson with those accuracy issues he has. And so Tyler Warren, if they really want to kind of turn the page on this offense and make it a little bit more quarterback friendly for a guy that they still have to figure out what he's going to be. It makes a ton of sense for me,
Yeah.
and
And
they're lacking some talent there at that position.
the pick is in for the Indianapolis. Another position the Buffalo Bills do not need. Tight end Tyler Warren heads to Indianapolis. Chris Ballard gets a very Chris Ballardy type of draft pick there. So the question now will be who's throwing him passes. Is it Danny Dimes or is it Anthony Richardson? But the Colts get themselves a tight end. They love themselves some tight ends there in Indianapolis. Was it like the most needy position for them? No, it was not. But this is clearly, again, that conversation we had at the start of the show tonight, or about 10 minutes into the show tonight. This is a weird draft where the value lies not in the sort of blue chip positions, but more in some of the auxiliary positions. And if you are willing to take auxiliary players a little bit higher in this draft, you're probably going to get a bargain. So the Colts get that bargain here, at least what most people consider a bargain here, in Tyler Warren at pick 14.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people thought was the best tight end in the draft. You get him at the middle of the first round, a team that really could use a tight end, figure out what they're going to do with this offense around Josh Downs, around Michael Pittman, around Alec Pierce. You're missing that tight end weapon. You've got Jonathan Taylor. This is a team that all of a sudden has like a pretty good looking offensive set of skill position players. And it's just going to come down to what they end up doing with the quarterback position, right? And I like this pick for the Colts. Was it their probably number one need? Maybe not, but it was a need. And so, like you said, Tyler Warren, potentially maybe a top 10-ish player in the draft, but because tight end is a little bit undervalued. I mean, Dane Brugler had him as his 8th overall prospect in this draft. PFF had Tyler Warren as their 10th overall prospect in this draft. So a good value here, I think, for the Colts in getting Warren. And, I think a smart pick by them. So just comes down to the quarterback with them, of course.
I really need the Falcons to take Jalen Walker off the board here, because he's a really good football player, but I don't want to have to wrap my head around how the Buffalo Bills are going to use Jalen Walker. Like, I need someone to just take him off the board, so I don't even have to think about that. I'm starting to get stressed out thinking Jalen Walker is going to be on the board when the Buffalo Bills get close to 30. Is that a weird thing to stress out about? Like, because it's a great player. It's a not a blue chip player, but a premier player, but very little length, kind of plays that kind of weird, Frankie Louvu type of hybrid position. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it here with Jalen Walker still on the board.
I would take him in a second. I mean, you don't pass up. He can make plays, man. I mean, I think, again, we were talking about all these other teams finding value and finding little areas of maybe trying to go off the beaten path, right? And take a position maybe that isn't generally thought of as a premier position, but you're getting value out of it. Like the Colts just did here with Warren. That would be an example for the Bills if that happened. Now, do I think that he's going to make it all the way there? Probably not. I think someone will take a chance on him or take a pick on him. But I would love that if he made it there and the Bills snagged, because that seems like a guy that the Eagles would take to me, right there. But as Pete says, probably going to Atlanta or Arizona, and that makes a lot of sense to me as well, because Atlanta absolutely needs help on the edge, man. I mean, they were one of the worst pass rushing teams a year ago. If you're Atlanta, I would probably be running up to the the board and making that pick. But again, don't know. That would be what I would do. I would feel pretty fortunate if I was Atlanta that a guy like that fell to you. But
he makes sense. Georgia guy, Atlanta. He makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at kind of what Atlanta has on the edge, right? You start to look Judon is gone, right? That didn't really work out for them. They signed Calais Campbell, right, as as a stopgap. They traded to get Baron Browning from Denver, who's a pass rushing linebacker. But I mean, Darius Robinson, their first round pick from a year ago, that's pretty much what they've got, right? They got Zaven Collins
Mm-hmm.
on the roster. I'm sorry, not Zaven Collins. I'm looking at Arizona's roster now.
Yeah.
So you've got, I don't
They
know
have
why I
Calais
said that.
Campbell.
So they have Calais Campbell. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, David Onyemata from the Saints, Morgan Fox. Like, these aren't like pure pass rushing guys. Yeah, Leonard Floyd on Atlanta. Okay, fine, but he's not the future. So yeah, I mean, I would think Jalen Walker would be a guy that would be in play here for Atlanta for sure.
Yeah, someone says Eric K comes in and says, "Is there something up with Harmon's shoulder?" It's a shoulder and a hip, but like there hasn't been like a very definitive answer on like what exactly is wrong with him. A bunch of people are saying like, "Hey, this is like peak silly season," sort of like people trying to leak not medical records, but just like medical rumors trying to get him to slip. Like, really nothing about his collegiate history like makes you think that there's an injury issue. Will Johnson is another guy dealing with some medical issues right now, medical red flags. He's got the knee issue. Now, the report for him was it's not something that affects him in the short term, but it could affect him long term, like a second contract. And then you have Jihad Campbell, who's dealing with the torn labrum. The rumor was he could start the season on the PUP list. So there are some guys who legitimately rumored to go prior to the Buffalo Bills selecting at 30 that could fall into the Buffalo Bills lap because of some medicals. And then it's going to be the Buffalo Bills decision. Do we feel comfortable taking this guy with whatever the medicals are? And when they ultimately decide to pass, those players are going to go to Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles at 32.
Yep. You take Harmon. I mean, honestly, like if Harmon gets to you at 30, I 100% agree.
You look at the spider chart. He's just like he's he's got the same spider chart as like a Dan Williams. Like, you just don't pass on a guy like that, in my opinion. He was the best interior disruptor in college football last year from a statistical standpoint. Like, you just run to the podium, and I get it. He's like, well, what about his run stopping? His run stopping is some issue. Well, like, you figure it out. You draft a more pure one tech in the second round. You figure, like, when you can get interior disruptors like that, you figure it out. Like, it's if a guy like Derek Harmon falls into your lap, you take it, and then you just draft Alfred Collins in the second round and you rotate him. Call it a day.
Yeah. Or you take CJ West.
Who cares who your DBs are when Ed Oliver and Derek Harmon are taking the quarterback's lunch?
Yeah, maybe you go like Harmon Sanders back to back.
Dude, like imagine 3rd and 12 and it's Joey Bosa, Derek Harmon, Ed Oliver, and Greg Rousseau. That's what we had this conversation back in the day, right? Like the NASCAR package, like can't see the forest through the trees. That's the type of defensive line we're talking about here when we talk about guys like that.
Exactly. Like, I just think, again, he's a guy that value-wise probably could be a top 15, top 20 player in the draft. Maybe some health concerns do push him down, but you can't pass on him in that scenario, right? I mean, like, especially if guys like Nolan are off the board by then, like you just have to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Pete says if Harmon goes to Philly, I'll go to a dark place. Yeah. Falcons are really
using the entire clock. Maybe they're trying to work a trade here. They're trying to trade back here. It'll be really interesting to see maybe who's trying to trade up. I don't know if the Bills, you're giving up significant capital. We're talking like second rounders, picks next year. We're talking a pretty significant chunk of change if you're trying to get up into the top 15. And if you look at it, right, like if you're the Buffalo Bills and you want to get up here, like who would it be for?
All right.
Shamar? Harmon?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to give up.
Golden?
Wow.
I don't know if you're giving up. I don't know if you're giving up the farm. Like, I don't know. In comment section, let us know in the comment section what you think here. Like, are you willing to give up like a farm type of deal? I'm not saying next year's one because I don't think it'll take that, but like you're trying to get up from 30 to 15. It's going to cost you like probably a 2 in next year's 2, or I don't have the calculator in front of me. It's going to cost you a significant chunk of change. Is there a significant chunk of change player left worth trading up for? I don't think there is. I think as Tank comes in, let it ride.
I don't think so either.
Like,
yeah,
I like Johnson and Barrett. I don't know if I want to trade 3 picks for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you want that elite. I gotta stop using that word elite. Like, you want elite comparative in this class, right? Like they're the upper echelon of this class. I'm not saying they're elite, but they're the upper echelon of this class. But at the end of the day, Jadair Barron and Will Johnson are primarily zone corners. Like, can they play man? Yeah, but like they're zone corners. That's not who you trade up for. So it's going to be really interesting because if you're giving up a lot of ammunition, then it makes it harder to fill those other holes and replace guys in the aggregate. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the pick is in for the Falcons. And we don't have to worry about Jalen Walker. He is off the board. I thought Michael Williams would be a landing spot with the Atlanta Falcons, but they get another Georgia Bulldog and Jalen Walker and a guy who can get after the quarterback and play a little linebacker. I think they're going to have a lot of fun with them there in Atlanta. Why am I blanking on the name of that? Raheem Morris is going to have a lot of fun with him there in Atlanta. I think he's a good addition to that defense. He just seems like an Atlanta Falcon type of player staying there in Georgia.
Yeah, and they really needed help on the edge. I mean, Dane Brugler had Jalen Walker as his 5th overall prospect in this draft. So again, it shows you like the kind of disparity in some of the consensus this year on some of the players. And I find that to be kind of interesting and kind of makes the draft a little bit more fun to kind of follow, because like there is potentially now going to start being some pretty big variance, I think, on some of the latter, like the second half of round 1. We could see some very interesting things happen. Jalen Walker, not a surprise he goes here. I didn't even expect him to be available for Atlanta, but absolutely fits for Atlanta. They needed the help. Certainly wasn't going to make it to the Bills. So you don't even have to worry about it. The Cardinals on the clock. I thought, as I was incorrectly talking about the Falcons depth chart, thinking it was theirs, but it was the Cardinals. The Cardinals could have also used Jalen Walker, I think, as well, but now not available. So a good pick by the Falcons. Seemed like maybe they were taking calls on a trade, but ultimately couldn't pass on Jalen Walker, especially with Arizona right behind him. So now the Cardinals, your hometown team, now on the clock.
Yeah, and I just didn't even realize this. My Ethernet cable like busted out of the computer there. I don't even know what happened. So I'm Wi-Fiing it here. Hopefully my internet is not too slow, but we'll get it all figured out on my end here in a second. But anyway, yeah, the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. I know the local beat writers and stuff. They have a bunch of names that they have bandied about. Shamar Stewart could be a guy. Michael Williams, I know, was a guy that they were really interested in, so that'll be interesting. But I'm assuming that a player the Buffalo Bills might have been interested in, or a player that some people might have on their radar, is probably going to go off the board with the Arizona Cardinals here. I think they're going to go somewhere in the trenches. Actually, you know what? That offensive lineman from Ohio State, they just hired. Yeah, they just hired Ohio State's offensive line coach to be their offensive line coach. They have Paris Johnson. They love Paris Johnson.
I lost you for a second there. I don't know if that was me or you.
Yeah, am I back? Am I good? I think I'm hooked back up to the Ethernet, so I should be good. Sorry, I didn't even notice. So as you know, like back in the day, I used to have a lot of internet issues here. So I went out and I bought a 65-foot Ethernet cable to connect straight to the modem. And I looked down and it just popped out. So I popped it back in, and I think I'm connected to the Ethernet again. So I should be good for the rest of the show. But
good.
I think Simmons is a real interesting option here for the Cardinals as a possible pick, just because, like I said, the connection with their offensive line coach. But if they decide to go along the defensive line, a guy like Derek Harmon, a penetrator, could come off the board to them. They could have interest in a guy like, I think, Walter Nolan. This is where a guy like Walter Nolan can come off the board as well. But 9 of the first 15 picks, producer Chris comes in the private chat and says, have been linemen. So a very heavy draft so far. The rumor is Arizona has no interest in a wide receiver. That's from some of the local beat writers and things like that. So let's see.
Could they be is Mike Green a fit for them? Like, I don't know enough about Arizona's defensive scheme. Would he be a fit for them?
Let's see. I think they could find a way to make it work. So let me pull it up. There's a local guy out here, John Gambadoro. He's pretty connected. And every year he puts out what he calls the Gambo 5, and it's the 5 players he thinks that the Cardinals could draft. And he's usually pretty good about picking one of the players in his 5 predictions. And his 5 predictions were trying to pull it up here. Tyler Booker, who's off the board, Kelvin Banks Jr., who's off the board, Josh Simmons, Walter Nolan, and Michael Williams, with an honorable mention to Derek Harmon. So if you were to believe John Gambadoro, who's pretty well connected, your
Go
choice
Simmons, please.
is Simmons, Walter Nolan, or Derek Harmon here for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I hope it's Simmons, and yeah, let's just hope, because the longer the defensive linemen stick around, the more obviously a chance the Bills have of getting them. Not even necessarily of them getting to 30, but as they continue to stay on the board, there's maybe a chance for a trade up as well. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I hope they go with offensive line, but.
And ladies and gentlemen, we might have a special guest joining us here momentarily for our draft coverage. I want to get some confirmation in the private chat before I do that. But we do have Greg Tomsett in the waiting room as we wait for this Arizona Cardinals pick. Let's see. Let's get this this fancy new background up. And hello.
Good evening.
How you doing? Got the kids to bed, ready to go?
Yes, I got the kids to bed. I had a sad ceremony earlier. One of my best friends passed away tonight. I'm not being overly dramatic. My projector in my theater room that I watch all my film and games on, the lamp died, and
oh no.
It was a sad moment. I had a moment in the backyard. I dug a hole. We had a ceremony. But I have a new projector. It's up. I watched some of the draft on it. The color is freaking amazing. It was great.
Forgot about your old.
It's what he would have wanted. It's what he would have wanted.
We have a pick in as well, Chris, if you want to throw that out there.
So honestly, the only thing I was going to ask you in the chat is I need the rules of engagement. Are we spoiling picks or are we going TV only?
We are not going TV only. We're doing our own thing here today.
Okay.
We are announcing it, but we've asked the chat not to
until we announce it.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to.
The Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolan, so we have another defensive lineman off the board. Hopefully, this does not lead to a run on defensive linemen, but I think if you ask most people in Bills Mafia, not myself, because Walter Nolan was my number 1 DT behind Mason Graham, but if you ask most people in Bills Mafia, this would have been one of the DTs they would be okay with coming off the board before the Buffalo Bills got to pick number 30. Walter Nolan off the board. Instant impact run defender. I think he's a perfect fit there in Arizona. He's got Calais Campbell now to sort of groom, and they got Darius Robinson along that defensive line as well. So a very Jonathan Gannon type of pick here in Walter Nolan for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, we can probably kiss Derek Harmon away at this point, I would imagine. But you never know. I mean, Nolan, I think, would have been my second preference behind Harmon, at least for what the Bills needed. Out of 2025 draft-eligible IDL, second best run defense grade for Walter Nolan of all interior guys. Only 21 years old. Still thought that he would have been a fit for the Bills on the inside. But again, not to be had. PFF had him as their PFF had Nolan as their 8th overall prospect, but Dane Brugler, who I really respect and I follow him a lot and read his Beast draft guide every year, only had Nolan as his 31st overall prospect. So a little bit of a variance there on consensus between some places on Nolan.
Yeah, I'm looking up at some of these other draft boards. Kyle Krabs had 39th for Walter Nolan as well. So
there's always going to be questions when you have a guy who I think uses the combination of speed to power as often as he did, but also is only 296. Like there's some question if that's going to translate. I think there's plenty of reason to believe it will. Obviously Mason Graham is not an overly big guy either. He weighed in 296.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's crazy, but I get that when you have that combination where it's not necessarily locked in from the full size standpoint. And then I know there were some questions of, the whatever you want to call it, the love of the game thing and the how dialed in he was all the time, work ethic stuff. It's always impossible for us to know how real those are and how much is just draft season smoke. But yeah, I think he was, I was closer to you guys where I was very equal opportunity. I wanted any of the top 4 D tackles. I preferred Harmon because I loved the pass rush side of it. I probably had Nolan, third out of that group or fourth. Obviously we never had a chance at Mason Graham. But I would have fully been happy with him. It would have been a coup if we could have had a chance at a guy like him. So having these guys go off the board at 13 and 16, that's not ideal. Harmon's still there. Not having any of the other corners go yet intrigues me. I think that's kind of exciting where there's at least something there. So give me more edge, give me more offensive tackle here, get a couple more of those, get us to 20 and give me Harmon, Johnson, Barron still there. If we can survive these next 3 picks, I think you then get into those discussions with Pittsburgh at 21 and the Vikings at 24, where now you're talking it's not going to cost us a mint to move up and that there's still someone there. So edge and offensive tackle here in these next 3 picks. And I think Cincinnati and Tampa are ones. Cincinnati's the one that scares me on Harmon.
Yeah, it's Cincinnati here. I mean, why don't they just take a receiver at this point? Just take another one.
Come on.
Do it. Take Matthew Golden.
All the cool kids are doing it.
So it'll be really interesting to see. The pick is in. Shamar Stewart off the board, trying to replace Sam Hubbard there in Cincinnati. They get a length and strength end. Looks like Myles Garrett, doesn't obviously play like Myles Garrett. That 27% missed tackle rate, not the greatest in the world, but I was a big fan of Shamar Stewart. I definitely would have been on board with the Buffalo Bills trading up into the 20s for him or taking him at 30 if he was on the board, just because I think Texas A&M is just apparently a graveyard for defensive linemen. Walter Nolan left, got significantly better at Ole Miss. Nick Skirton was great at Purdue, kind of went invisible there at Texas A&M with what they asked him to do. So I think this is a good player for the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you're a Bills fan and you're really into adding an interior defender, not an edge rusher, or you're really into adding a cornerback, this is another box to check as we work our way towards pick number 30. Shamar Stewart, who was 9th on my list of Bills wants, realistic Bills wants or semi-realistic Bills wants, is off the board. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
David, real quick, do me a favor. Explain to me what his arms are doing right here.
Wow.
Is that Jaden Daniels-esque right there?
I get how long they are, but does that make them do that? How do they do that? For anyone listening, he's spreading out his arms, signaling a missed field goal, but his elbows are literally inverted and look like they're both hyperextending. Matt R saying he's quadruple jointed. I don't even understand the physics of how that's happening, but he's gonna fly away.
Yeah, it does look like an airplane a bit. Obviously, this is a guy that you're banking on the athletic traits, right? And the system that he was in didn't really do him justice. The sack numbers obviously weren't there. Only a handful of sacks.
There's a trade.
Oh, trade alert! Trade alert!
All I see is the Seahawks are trading down. It doesn't say with who.
Let's get the trade alert thing going. We've only been able to use it once
Our boy Damon has said Seahawks could. Do we have the official trade? Anyone got the official trade? We a little premature on that.
Whatever.
No, Jordan Schultz is saying the Seahawks are trading down, so I think that's real. But that's literally
he would know. He's got the.
That's the entirety of the tweet. The Seahawks are trading down. ... That's all I got.
Come on. Yeah, that's all we got here as we awkwardly await.
Be with us or be with the team for an offensive tackle.
Seahawks could trade. I've been relying on draft diamonds this whole time. So
Ooh.
Matthew Golden, maybe.
Damon does some stellar work.
Yeah, we got.
Yeah, he's always on top of the picks too. So he's a good one.
We got nothing. Is TV going to beat the internet for once?
No, never.
I can promise you no. But
they still got the Seahawks.
I want to know who it's
clock.
with. I want to know who it's with.
Like I can't deal with this. Come on.
Yeah, I got nothing still. My boy Ari's not getting it. No one's getting it. So a QB trade. That's a great point. Like how great. So
Jackson
another
this would be the spot to get ahead of the Steelers.
And it would be great too, because you know what it would do? It would start a run on quarterbacks. It could get some people panicking. And then maybe we get 4 quarterbacks off the board before the Buffalo Bills pick it. So that would be
put it in the universe.
Something to do. But let's put that into the universe. If it's not the Bills. We're still at the point though where like you probably given up 3 picks to move up here, right? Like I don't have the board in front of me, but like what kind of compensation would it take to get up here? It would probably take one of your seconds. And is there any player still like is Derek Harmon someone worth trading a first and a second round pick for?
No, but if you believe Eric Turner, Jahdae Barron is.
Yes, that might be one.
It might take you. You might have to give up. I mean, you might have to give up a second and plus more. I think probably to get up
100. I mean, by the trade value chart, our 30 and 56 is just about. Our 30 and 56 is not quite enough to make it up 17.
Throw in one of your 6th or 5ths probably, and gets it done.
I mean, it's 296 to 294. But yeah, like even if we were going to slightly lose the trade and we let them their 6th for one of our late 5ths or something like that, but we would have to give up one of the seconds to go up there. If we were going to try to make this big of a move, it would have to be something like that. So I'm going to guess it's not us, but
that's not bad.
I mean, you tell me again, if no different than my, super analytical analysis on the Travis Hunter trade. If he's a star, no one cares. If he's a star, no one cares. Yeah, they paid 125 cents on the dollar. They overpaid. But if Travis Hunter's a star, no one will ever remember. No one will care. If you got an awesome value, but the players you pick aren't any good, also no one will care. Like if Mason Graham turns out to be a dud, it's not going to matter that they got 125 cents on the dollar because Mason Graham's a dud and the guy that you used the pick on didn't matter. So like the theoretical value has no relevance if you don't actually convert it to real value. So if you trade up and then Jahdae Barron is a freaking star and you can move him anywhere you want in the secondary and he can play every single position, no one's going to care. He's a star. I'm going to guess it's not us. I'm going to guess that it's a quarterback team coming up to get Shadur or Jackson Dart or whoever. But it is weird that no one. I'm looking at Jordan Schultz's feed to see like he hasn't said anything else.
Yeah, you would think he'd be the first one to get it. He knew they were trading. They are still on the clock on television, and it's running clock with about 3 minutes left. So, does the clock reset once you trade?
Well, now it's saying the pick is in.
They didn't trade down.
Team that
did not trade down.
No. So Jordan Schultz just quote tweeted his own saying, "No trade. Seahawks are picking." I mean, he quote tweeted his own tweet of the Seahawks are talking about, so he's taking it back. That's always crazy when you have it where obviously that means it was close. Like that he didn't just make that up out of nowhere. He just ran with it a second too early.
Ooh.
And that
pick is in. Chris, if you go over. Another offensive lineman, Gray Zabel, heads out to Seattle, right? And going west from North Dakota, not that too far west, I guess. Heading out, and another offensive lineman off the board. If you are the Buffalo Bills, this is another good move for you, as since Travis Hunter, not a single corner has been taken. That includes Will Johnson with the questionable medicals now. That includes Jahdae Barron with the length issues. That includes guys like Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, all still on the board for you. If you are looking for a defensive tackle, we still have Derek Harmon still on the board. And then it obviously, I think, drops a tier after Derek Harmon. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, this is good news. and receivers continue to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we see some receivers go in these next couple of picks here, but Matthew Golden, like if we are going to take a receiver in the first round, that's the dude, and he is still on the board.
So real quick here, unless you guys have some in-depth Gray Zabel analysis that I don't want to interrupt, talk to me about where your head is at on Will Johnson, because I listed him right there with Jahdae Barron, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan. When I was listed, like, hey, who's worth trading up for? He's equally there for me. And people are like, wow, what about the knee thing? And my answer back was, and I listed up other guys, but the reason you have Trey White, Dane Jackson, and I listed Daquan Jones and Taylor Rapp, and the reason you have those guys and AJ Epinesa is that I care about who the best long-term value is for the Bills, not who the best player is on September 8th. Like I don't need immediacy. So whether that's the later guys like Siobhan Ravel or Morrison, or whether it's a guy like Johnson, I don't care at all. Like that has no bearing. Who's available and ready for weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 has zero bearing to me. We have a great team. We're going to win games no matter what. We have a chance to end a long-term potential blue chip piece, take the upside swing. If he has a short-term injury right now and we need to ease him in, we have Trey White and Dane Jackson. Of course we can survive for half a season. I couldn't possibly let that factor in for me, short of it being a long-term red flag where you're worried about it being a thing later on. But
and I think
so this is from Dr. Kyle Trimble.
Okay.
The procedure that Johnson had was called an osteochondral allograft transplant. Basically, they took a piece of bone and cartilage from his healthy knee and put it into his injured knee where the damaged cartilage was trying to promote healing. Johnson had this procedure in 2023. Typically, these grafts do take and hold for upwards of 10 years. So the procedure works overall, but only 73% of athletes return to the same or higher level. Some studies show as high as 87% return to play. What I don't see clearly is how long their careers were, but the study that I am seeing, 2 of the 15 subjects were NFL players. They couldn't return to play. So it is a long-term concern.
So, and when you're talking about that, those percentages, 25% of legitimate risk, 75%, that's not nothing. Like that is a legitimate, 1 out of 4 is not something you want to completely dismiss. It's also something, I always think of those guys that, the players where you hear about who was the D tackle that ended up falling to like the 5th round and the Raiders got him because there was like a heart thing that came up like 5 years ago or so. You're supposed to be like a top 10 pick and then ended up falling way down the board.
Yeah, I know Marvin Wilson had that knee issue years ago too and fell to Cleveland like the 7th round. He's in the UFL now.
Yeah, and there's lots of examples in both directions. There's lots of examples of guys who are like, hey, oh yeah, that's why they fell, and then it didn't work out. And there's a lot of them where, it's bone on bone. There's no cartilage in his knees, and they play, a fully normal career, and nothing ever comes up. So again, I trust their medicals. If they knocked it down, I think this range, it makes sense where the alternatives to a guy like Johnson are still very much high-end legitimate players, and that Will Johnson versus Walter Nolan, Will Johnson versus Gray Zabel, Will Johnson versus other guys who are top 15, universally top 15, 20 ranked players, then you're talking like, okay, I'm not going to take the risk then. But at some point you get to the point where like, all right, now we're talking about materially lesser players, and if it's a materially lesser player, now the risk is like, well, if the 75% chance hits that we get the 10 years out of them that Dr. Kyle Trimble just, laid out, all right, I'm going to take that chance.
The Bucks are on the clock now, and this has been a very, very popular landing spot for Donovan Izaraku on board. So that would be another edge rusher that could possibly come off the board. I know Tampa Bay is also another place that Jahad Campbell has been rumored to possibly
maybe
go.
Pierce Jr.
Yeah. So there are a number of different players here at non-defensive tackle and non-cornerback positions that are rumored to go. So it'll be interesting to see where the Bucks do decide to pull the trigger over the next couple of minutes.
TV is saying
here.
the pick is in. Ooh, I see it.
The pick is is a very, very interesting one. Good player. I think this is I don't want to say a better version of Khalil Shakir, because Khalil Shakir just
there's
got that
Chris Godwin
second.
2.0.
Yeah, that's another one, like a slot player, like a slot heavy player. I would say he's like a bigger version of Khalil Shakir. So, but Emeka Ibuka comes off the board here. Again, they just re-signed Chris Godwin. They got Mike Evans, but they inject some youth here. They give Baker Mayfield yet another weapon to play with in Tampa Bay. So a wide receiver falls, a wide receiver comes off the board. He was not on my Bills specific board just because his biggest, the MO on him is like, use him like Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? So that's the MO for him. He wasn't on my Bills specific board. So this is another one that goes in the Bills' favor here.
Yeah, I think as a fit for the Bills, like he's a good player, but I don't think he was going to be a fit for what the Bills need. His 7.9 average depth of target was outside the top 50 of eligible wide receivers. He had a decreased ADOT every year throughout his career at Ohio State, and I know some of that's what they've asked him to do. So that's, take that with a grain of salt. But most of his damage coming at and in the intermediate towards the line of scrimmage areas. Played 73% of his snaps in the slot, career high 81% of his snaps in the slot in 2024. So, if you wanted a wide receiver as a Bills fan, like if you're one of the few people who did want a wide receiver, you're probably glad that this was the one picked by another team, because guys like Golden are still available. And for me, like, again, I don't think what the Bills really would have been interested in at the position. So I'm good with this pick coming off the board here. I like Igbuga as a player. I just don't think he would have been a fit for the Bills for what they need right now.
Pour one out for our guy Mark in the Discord channel. Feel for our man. He had been pounding the table for Igbuka for all season. Just one time he wants one of these Ohio State wide receivers. Give us someone trained by Brian Hartline, but we'll wait for 2 years from now when we sell the farm to move up and get, the juggernaut they got going, the new one they got brewing over there.
And our guy Anthony Prohaska, he's struggling right now. Seeing that Jahdae Barron is still on the board, he's going through it. Anxiety. He's tweeting out gifs of Kate McKinnon smoking the cigarette from SNL. To me, like, I'm going to run through my big board here, and I know a lot of people don't agree with my big board, but
your dream board.
My number one dream was Mike Green. Obviously he's got the character concerns, but I really think he's the best pure, like, just get after a quarterback edge rusher in this class outside of Abdul Carter. Malachi Starks is still on the board. That's an intriguing name. Again, some people might not want to talk safety. Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell, Jahdae Barron, Derek Harmon, Matthew Golden. There are still some guys who I had as in, I'm pretty sure they were going to be gone before the Buffalo Bills pick at 30. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those dudes who are either a 2025 fit or a 2026 fit still on the board.
So that's 10. You got 7 players and we got 10 picks. So we need 4 offensive tackles, quarterbacks, linebackers, running backs. We just need a handful more there in that space.
Or someone from those positions that is out of that list, right?
Sure.
Like, you could have someone fall in love with, like, Omar Norman Lott, right? At the end of, like, in this, right? And it's like, so, okay, fine, take him.
I think Pierce Jr., Simmons, Azuruku, Connerly, Shadur Sanders obviously would be huge, but I think getting 4 of those in that space, I don't think we're going to have our choice of multiple players out of those 7 that you listed.
Yep.
But if we can get 4 to go, we get one of them. And that's all we need. We just need one. We just need one to make it. And I think that having 4 of those guys go, I'm going to guess someone is just Will Johnson and Mike Green are just too highly rated. I think they're going to go. I'd love Jahdae Barron to get within range, but I just don't see it. But I think we're getting to the point where a couple of those guys could make it to us. So we just need that combo to come together. Rattle off your 7 again.
My 7 were Mike Green, Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell, Jahdae Barron, Derek Harmon, and Matthew Golden. Now, I know Campbell is not going to be something that
Campbell,
Bills
Gold,
fans want.
a lot of people listening are rooting for Campbell and Golden to go. They're part of the group that pushes
Jordan
them
Schultz
down,
is reporting the New York Giants are trying to trade back into the first round. There's rumors the Saints are looking to get back into the first round as well. So some things could be stirring here. And if you have,
do you think Shadur goes 21 if nobody trades up?
Well, I'll tell you what, if somebody trades up, you could have two quarterbacks go back to back. Like you could have Milroe or Dart go in here as well. So that would be the dream. That would be the dream.
If the Steelers don't get Shador, and like reports are that Tomlin likes him, I could see them like just saying punt on quarterback.
What are the Steelers even doing at this point? Like the funny thing is like Shadur's not even a fit for Arthur Smith. Like Mike Tomlin continues to puke all over himself with that Pittsburgh Steelers offense and waste away their chances of like winning, despite the fact that they consistently play like good defense, like decent defense, right? Like everyone wants to give Mike Tomlin so much credit because they're so consistent every year, despite the fact they're not good on paper. But like Mike Tomlin deserves some of the blame. Like a guy who's been the head coach that long, he picks his offensive coordinator. Like he picks his quarterbacks. Like he's part of the problem with what they got going on there. And you're going to go add Shador Sanders now to play with Arthur Smith. Like that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm torn, and we don't really know what they've heard and what their private conversations have been with Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of stuff where you can totally tell yourself a story where Rodgers has told them like, hey, I am interested, but not if you're going to pick a rookie quarterback in the first round. And they're telling him, well, we can't make any promises. We don't know until the time comes, but we'd love to have you. And both of them are just kind of waiting for this to happen. And they know in the back of their minds that if they go another direction and they take Connerly or they take Simmons here and then know that they have Rodgers in their back pocket, or the whole time they've been working with Atlanta to get Kirk Cousins. We have no idea where those things are going. And that's easily a possibility here that could fill in one of these blanks.
It's just weird to me with the Steelers because you actually look at their roster, they really don't have a lot of holes. Like they just need the quarterback, and they're playoff ready. They're playoff ready.
Waiting.
It would be Cousins. I would trade with Atlanta for Cousins.
I'm waiting for them to take Shador and then Aaron Rodgers to hop on with Pat McAfee and say he's joining the Steelers.
That's so awesome.
And just watch the world burn.
Dude, if we could see a Aaron Rodgers versus Deion Sanders like social media campaign, I would pay money for front row seats.
We are still waiting the Denver Broncos out here.
Broncos taking calls. They're taking calls, man.
They are taking calls right up to the wire.
The pick is in.
The pick is in, so the Broncos did not trade this pick. Running back is an option here, I think. Wide receiver, no. Oh, that's painful.
Ooh.
But why? The Ryan Reynolds meme. But why?
The pick is in. The pick is in. The dream is dead. The Denver Broncos select Jahdae Barron, quarterback out of Texas. A great pick for them. I know they have a bunch of players in that secondary outside of just Pat Surtain, so I'm sure they're going to use him as sort of a versatile chess piece. But Jahdae Barron fits in with that defense quite well. Vance Joseph used guys like Byron Murphy for years. So good pick there for the Broncos, and unfortunate for the Bills as the second cornerback after Travis Hunter comes off the board. The other major corner still available is Will Johnson, but he's got some of those serious medical concerns that we sort of talked about earlier on in this show. So Derek Harmon, Will Johnson, Malachi Starks, Matthew Golden. Those are the names I think if you're a Bills fan, you're probably looking at right now as sort of like the upper tier. I personally am a big fan of like Mike Green as well, but I know not everyone is. And then if you look below that, I think you start to look at Donovan Izaraku, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, Tyleek Williams. These are some of the names, Landon Jackson. These are some of the names that start to get thrown around as we progress closer to pick number 30.
I mean, if you're anti-Chiefs, I mean, you can take some solace in this pick, right? Clearly the Broncos aren't as confident maybe in Riley Moss, playing opposite of Pat Surtain for the long term as they were at one point. He struggled at times last year. They even had they were mixing and matching rookies in as well, opposite of Pat Surtain last year. So like, man, what a duo for the Broncos now to kind of go up against Kansas City and the Chargers and that now newly potent Raiders offense with Geno Smith at the helm. But like again, in all seriousness, sucks for the Bills. I would have had Barron over Will Johnson just because of the injury concerns with Johnson. So again, that's kind of interesting that he goes before Johnson. Not surprising, but for the Broncos, man, you got to kind of look at it
this
as
offseason too.
Yeah, like you're gonna try to shut down that Kansas City team, and like, okay, we're on board with you to do that. So let's go. I guess if you're the
Surtain, Barron, Hufanga, they've still got Brandon Jones and PJ Locke at the other spot, and then Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan to mess around in the other pieces. That's a nice secondary, very nice secondary.
Especially with some of the dogs they have up front too. John Franklin,
and they still have that
Jonathan
rotation.
Cooper, Nick Benito.
Yeah, Benito, Zach Allen, Cooper, Franklin Myers, DJ. They brought back DJ Jones, added Dre Greenlaw.
Scary defense unless you have Josh Allen, then it's not so scary.
Yeah, I mean, other than us, that doesn't. When you keep them on the field for 42 minutes, it matters less.
Pittsburgh is on the clock here. Derek Harmon. This is a sweet spot for Derek Harmon if they choose not to go quarterback here. So
if this isn't Shedeur Sanders, I'm going to be really upset.
Oh, I think if they take a quarterback, I think they're going to take Jackson Dart. I think if they take quarterback,
that would be even better. Even better.
That would be
watch them take Tyler Shook. Oh no,
no, it's
all right. Pick is in.
Terrible picks.
Pick is in.
Back-to-back painful picks.
Ooh. The dream is quickly dying. A guy who is going to have a really fun time playing with Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They continue to do what the Pittsburgh Steelers do, take a very Pittsburgh Steelers-y type pick. Derek Harmon of the Oregon Ducks goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that leaves the Bills now in a situation where you've got Will Johnson's medicals. You have Jahad Campbell, who's not a premium position or a 2025 need, but a 2026 need sticking out on the board. You've got some edge rushers in Izaraku, Mike Green, James Pierce. You got a receiver in Matthew Golden. You got some DTs and guys like Darius Alexander, Tyleek Williams. But now all signs, I think, are starting to point to the likes of like a Trey Amos or a Maxwell Hairston here for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, these picks back to back really sting, and kind of figured this was going to happen, right? Like we knew some of these guys were going to come off the board, and now we're kind of getting back maybe into the conversation about the guys who we were kind of really talking about all along at this pick, and guys like Amos and Revel and Hairston. And look, I mean, I'll say it again. It's going to make people mad. I don't think you can count out Landon Jackson either for the Bills at 30, as much as I wouldn't necessarily want that. But with a guy like Mike Green around, still hanging around, you just don't really know. Campbell, I know you keep mentioning him, and as a prospect, great. I'm going to find it hard to wrap my head around that pick, at least for the immediate. To Greg's point, though, and
redshirt season, like obviously he would be the Milano succession plan in hand right now. I think it would be weird to have a guy that you're like finding spots to get him on the field in the first season. But again, he's a great player. Like he's a guy who could be a star and be better than Terrell Bernard, as you go forward and having that star combo. I've pretty much pivoted now to full corner. Like, so whether it's Johnson, Hairston, Rebel, Amos, I would rather go there, lock that up, and then try to move up from, tomorrow to get the best defensive lineman we can at both picks, some combination of D tackle and edge. But I'd be fine if they ended up with a Pierce Jr., Green, one of the edge rushers here. I'd live with it. Starks is a great player. Golden's a great player. I'd get over it. Like, they're really good players. I'd be totally fine with it. But I'd really, now, the fact that we can't get one of those stud D tackles, I would rather just lock in the corner and then get the best D tackle we can tomorrow.
Yeah, trading back is really tempting now, but
yes, for sure.
maybe
For sure.
get some of these teams like Pittsburgh,
The Giants.
the Giants.
Heck, those offers we talked about,
Mhm.
if I just get 34 on Kayvon Thibodeau for 30.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
take that.
you can come up, get your quarterback. We get to check one of those boxes. I even threw out there, like, I'll give you 34 and 132 for or 30 and 132 for 34 and Thibodeau. That values him around like pick 98, like a late third. They feel pretty good about what they're doing. They get to get the 5th-year option on their quarterback. We still get the corner at 34. We probably were going to take anyways.
Mhm.
And Thibodeau's obviously better than any
This
edge we were
is-
going to get at 132. So we still then get to use the other picks at, we drop back and get the corner, or drop back and get Tyleik Williams, and then still have 56 and 62 to get whatever we don't get at 34. And we don't have to take an edge, because Thibodeau would obviously be
Mhm.
a fantastic piece there. And we get a guy very motivated in a contract year. I think you're acknowledging that you're pretty much just getting him as a rental. But if you wanted, you could exercise the 5th-year option and basically have like a 2-year, $24 million deal. I think the combination would be, if you went that route. So it's not the end of the world, but you could have a 2-year rental on a guy like Thibodeau, where I think some people, I think it's super similar to Trayvon Walker, where not living up to a top 5 pick also doesn't equal bust. Like 21 sacks in 3 years at a 17-year average of 8.5 sacks a season. Like, that's still really good. And he had an 11 sack season. Like, that's still really good. It's just, he's not the all world top 5 pick people thought he was going to be.
And we got a murderer's row of some teams who could use a corner here. Green Bay could
Stop
use a
saying
corner.
mean things.
I know Green Bay could use a corner. Minnesota could use a corner. I think the sleeper
Minnesota
for me
could use draft picks.
Yeah. So Minnesota could also use draft picks. That's been our sweet spot for a trade up this whole time. Is I think a 1, 4, and 5 gets it done to get up to 24. The math checks out with the Rich Hill trade value model. The Rams could use a corner. The Ravens on paper, like, they don't need a corner, but they could use a corner. So that's like 3 or 4 teams between now and when we pick. The Commanders could use a corner. That could all use a cornerback. So I think this is going to be defense heavy outside of the Houston Texans over the next couple of picks here. Maybe the Chargers go offense, but yeah, this could get real interesting here. Matthew Golden is
I
the
could
one
see the
wild
Chargers
card.
taking Golden.
Yeah.
I could see them
I
adding
think
another receiver.
he's gotten some connections to Green Bay as well. I know that is something they have talked about. I'm starting to get the feeling that we're going to trade out of the first round again, and the whole exercise will have been for naught. I'm really
Honestly,
getting that vibe.
the way things are going, the way things just went in these last 2 picks, like, I think it's certainly more likely that we trade out now than we trade up for anybody. But I mean, like, look, if a guy, like, if there's a little bit of a mini corner run here, and let's say someone takes a chance on Rebels, like, upside, and maybe the Vikings like Hairston's speed. Like, if Amos is sitting there at 30 and he's like kind of the last in that group, like, I'm going to stay put and I'm going to take him at 30.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I don't need us to, the optimizing value, maximizing value thing is great on a simulator in theory, but messing around depending on what's there, like, so I think there's enough gap between Will Johnson's upside and the other guys that you don't pass on him. If he goes in the next 6 picks, which of course it's very likely that he will, then I don't need one of those other guys. Like, so I think you've made a lot of really good points, Steve, about not overvaluing need over BPA. However, I would rather tempt fate at, like, well, we could take Starks or Golden or Green or whoever, but I'll take the value dropping down to 34. And if those are the guys you miss on in that window, it's less impactful because it wasn't at a position of need. And now, okay, yes, we didn't get maybe a slightly better prospect at a position we didn't need as much, but we recouped value and then got the guy that we could have reached over those guys at 30. So it's starting to turn into, for me, Johnson in a runaway or trade down And if not trade down, then those scenarios. I almost think Johnson's the only guy that I'd have like a run to the podium pick that's left.
And I kind of agree with Claude Puig here. Like a bunch of NFL insiders took Will Johnson completely off their first round mocks, their final first round mocks. Daniel Jeremiah did not have him in his final first round mock. Well, there was another one as well.
Is that now a possibility where do we then take a pick there, whether it's Starks, whether it's Green, whether it's one of these other pieces, and then we try to move up tomorrow? If say in that lens with the injury that we won't try to parse better or worse, but that Will Johnson plus injury puts him into the bucket with Hairston, Rebel, Amos, Morris, and Thomas. And that, you know, I think you guys obviously have some preference. We've seen people rank them, but let's say those 6 are in the Bills bucket relatively equally from a tier standpoint. Do you then start to monitor that bucket of, okay, we'll wait, and then when 2, 3, 4 of them come off the board, you move up and grab the one that's left? And that's the move instead, where we pick at 30 and take maybe a less of a need, but now we're more aggressive tomorrow from 56 to move up to say 42 or something like that.
It looks to me like the Chargers are trying to work a trade here. I'm getting the vibe just from
they're milking it all the way down to the end.
Milking it all the way down the end. They're having a conversation. Their GM's on the phone. Like, just from what I can see aesthetically with my television on mute.
Yeah, they're literally, I'm watching the same thing. They're literally yelling back and forth on a speakerphone.
And to me, if you are the Buffalo Bills, I have a vibe that if I have a vibe, Maxwell Hairston's their guy I talked about at the beginning of the like, I can just see it, and like
I can tell you as someone who watched him run his 40 in person from like 25 feet away, it's one of the fastest humans I've ever seen in my entire life.
He was the fastest guy at the combine, flat out.
It was
fastest guy, regardless of position.
Remarkable how noticeable, how easy his speed was. Like I sat there and watched like 60 guys in a row run a 40. How fast he got going fast was remarkable.
And jumping Minnesota for him, I think would make sense, because to me, Minnesota might be a team that might be in on a guy like Maxwell Hairston. So that is something to look out for. Sorry, my daughter needs to say goodnight to me.
Hey, quick side note: how funny would it be if Jim Harbaugh got jumped in the draft?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts here on who the Chargers should take? Oh, now you're shy, huh?
Same thoughts as Harbaugh. He has no idea.
This is so weird.
Are they? The pick is in.
The pick is in. It says the pick. So they obviously work this down to the last possible second to get a trade done, and couldn't.
Nothing happened. Yeah, and like I said, like if it was the Buffalo Bills on the line, I can see Brandon Beane being like, Brandon Beane loves like his day 2 picks. Like I can imagine like losing some of that fourth round ammo, or having to give up one of your picks in the second round, like might just be too rich for his blood. And like it might have came down to him just being like, all right, we're pivoting. I think if it was Maxwell Hairston or Trey Amos or a corner that they coveted, maybe Azari Thomas, trying to jump Minnesota would make sense, because I think Minnesota's going to take a corner.
Don't rule out Donovan.
Are there any Michigan guys? Oh, I mean, is Harbaugh going to take Johnson?
They took. The pick is in.
Okay,
I know, might take a second here, and it is something that's good for us. The Chargers have a running back, and his name is Omarion Hampton. So adding a running back to that backfield to hammer the rock, to maybe create a more balanced offense for Justin Herbert. You know, they loved to run the ball last year, and they were doing it kind of with a island of misfit toys and a lot of broken running backs, and J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, Gus Bus. So they got themselves a guy who can carry the ball 25 times a game in Omarion Hampton. So the Chargers go with a running back here in the first round. But to me, it looked like they were trying to trade out, and it just didn't work.
Which
this is a
AFC West rookie gets more carries in his rookie season?
Good question. Genty.
I think it would be
Gino
close,
loves to
but I
trip
think
the
you're right.
rock.
I think you're
Yeah.
right. But I think like
I mean it's gonna be close. I mean, yeah, I could see that. I mean, this is a huge win,
also
though,
for
obviously, the
all
Bills.
you dynasty football players, 2 amazing landing spots for.
They have
Dante,
Najee. They signed
and
Najee. I
Hampton.
forgot they had Najee.
Oh, that is
Yeah, but-
weird.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it matters, but that is weird.
One year deal though, right, for Najee, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean
And-
Harbaugh, right? He used Gus Bus and JK, and they still have Vidal. Like he's gonna use 2 guys probably.
But okay, so
but
now
he did kind of run JK into the ground early in the season. Like he
Yeah.
rode him.
Now we got 2 teams who can do some real damage to us here, though, in the Packers and the Vikings. I think they share.
But that was a big win, though. A running back coming
Yeah.
off, like the second
Mhm.
running back coming off, that was maybe unexpected, but a win because just one more player that we weren't going to take.
Or Najee Harris is just like, what's the man got to do to be the lead back?
Is Shadur Sanders
He's
going to fall out of the first round?
It wouldn't.
Maybe that's
shock
who the
me.
Bills end up trading with. Maybe the Bills trade 30 for
like-
someone who wants to come up and get him.
I've been saying this since February. Not a single one of these quarterbacks should have been a first round pick. Cam Ward shouldn't have been a first round pick. Like this is just none of these guys were talked about as first round picks previous to the start of last college football season. Cam Ward, I liked him as like a 4th, 5th round flyer when he was at Washington State, but now he's the number 1 overall pick in the draft. This is a bad quarterback class that has been pumped up by the media because that's what people like to talk about and that's what people like to watch. None of these quarterbacks deserve to go in the first round. If we get 2 of them going for the Bills pick, I'd be pretty excited. Like Shadur Sanders is like a fun, like second day, like what's his career arc? Gardner Minshew? Like
I do think he's a high floor guy. I do think that there's a very high likelihood that he's pretty good. But I think there's also like pretty good is Jacoby Brissett. Like I think, I think that there's some Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett kind of things there to him where like he could be pretty good. I do think there's a world where there's some Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins possibility if everything happens just right. Yeah. Like I don't think it's impossible that he someday is the 17th best quarterback in the league. I think that's in the range of possible outcomes. And I actually think it's very likely that he's for sure the 30th best quarterback in the league. Like I think he has a reasonably high floor, but when you're drafting a guy where there's no special upside, your best case scenario is that he's pretty good. It's just really hard to value that.
We need Green Bay to take Josh Simmons here
on the clock. Yeah,
I'd like some offensive tackles to go for them not to make it to Kansas City. So now I'm going to be rooting for some spite petty picks here.
Yeah, I'm looking at. Let's see who are the tackles.
They've got Rasheed Walker slotted in as their left tackle for Green Bay.
Give me Connerly and Simmons both going in the next couple picks here.
Yes, agree with that.
Ursary from Minnesota has gotten some.
I don't care. They could like at some point there will be someone available for them. I would just like it not to be Simmons or Connerly.
Trying to see if there's any. Are there any guards left that we're being talked about?
Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson is a good lineman. He's a good offensive lineman. I think he's probably a guard, but he played, some pretty, critical moments at left tackle to win a national championship. So I mean,
Bola Joe Tooney. Yeah, Bola Joe Tooney. Well, the Packers
are getting trade calls similar to the Chargers.
Someone's trying to get up. Someone's trying to jump someone. Is it the quarterback teams? Is it the Bills? Is it? I wouldn't be shocked if like the Eagles were trying to get up for somebody.
My guess is the reason that they're not getting converted is that everybody knows that everyone wants to trade down and there's no one really special to trade up for. So the trade up offers are probably losing values on the trade chart from a historical standpoint. And they're saying, well, in this draft, this is what it's worth trading up for. And I think people are afraid to like, quote unquote, lose the trade. So they're trading down.
What was the Kyrie? Do you guys remember off the top of your head the Kyrie Elam trade from where to where and what we only gave up a 4th, right?
Yeah.
And we moved up how many spots?
Even. I think
that was like from like 27 to 23 or 27 to 24. So we moved up like 4 spots. So that's same idea.
To me, the cost right now is a 4th and a 5th. Now, you're using the Rich Hill value chart. It's -1 for Minnesota if they make that move.
Yeah.
So,
which, I mean,
literally a tie.
in a year
Literally.
like this is totally reasonable to be within that kind of percentage of
And Jordan
making something
Schultz
happen.
says it's the Eagles. Howie Roseman's got to. I really hope Howie Roseman takes James Pierce off the board. Now, I say that knowing full well that James Pierce will probably go to the Eagles and be very good, but I don't
He's
want
the guy. He would not care about the off-field issues with Mike Green and would see it as a premium player.
Or Jahad Campbell. They need linebacker.
Any either of those guys would be. I with what they've already invested at corner, and Malachi Starks would make a lot of sense for them.
This is what Howie does, and people are like yelling at me on social media, and I'm like, this is what Howie does, and you're not mad at Howie when he does it, but you're mad at Brandon Beane when I discuss Brandon Beane possibly doing it. You get mad at me, but Howie does it. He's a saint. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because like imagine that, like because I've been pitching right on social media Malachi Starks to the Bills at 30. I was like, the value, just like you have a Taylor Rapp can't stay healthy. Cole Bishop's not a guarantee. 2 safeties on 1-year deals. This guy could be your Micah Hyde. Pull the trigger at 30. He's a top 15 player in this class. Just because it's not a value position doesn't mean he's not a good football player. Like, this is the kind of draft where non-value positions, you're going to get the better football player. And everyone's like, no, we got to take a defensive tackle. No, we got to take a corner. I'm like, 2 picks later, the Eagles will pull the trigger. And 3 years from now, you'll be calling Brandon Beane an idiot for not taking Malachi Starks.
Yeah.
Probably.
And I think Starks is also the kind of versatile piece where, that can be a sneaky, like, future Taron Johnson replacement. That can be like a movable chess piece in this first year where you allow Taylor Rapp to be the dime linebacker and we play more dime than usual. Or I love when we go with that 3-2-6 look with 3 D linemen, 2 linebackers, 3 corners, 3 safeties, and like having a player that can allow that to really happen. Just having that tool in the tool belt is a really nice option.
No trade. The Packers are picking.
Okay. Offensive tackle. Take an offensive tackle. Take Azaraku. Take Mike Green. Take Pierce Jr. There's so many picks here that could be not terrible for us. Do one of the things not terrible for us.
So what I'm learning from having Greg on as long as he's been on, he is very anti-edge at 30.
It's not that I'm anti-edge because I want an edge player. I was just talking about Kayvon Thibodeau. There are guys later on.
Pick is in for the Packers, by the way.
And
we have a receiver off the board, and that receiver is Matthew Golden. So now Jordan Love has yet another receiver to throw the football to. I know Christian Watson's got some long-term injury concerns, so adding another receiver to the room with Romeo Doves and Jaden Reed and did Tavion Wicks and the tight ends that they have was something in the cards for the Packers. They pull the trigger on a tight end, leave some more defensive players for the Bills, and I think that pretty much rules out the Buffalo Bills taking a wide receiver in the first round unless they've been Luther Burden pilled, which I don't think they have been.
And if you were, look, Matthew Golden would have been nice, right? Like, don't get me wrong, but like, I think like most people were kind of, that would have been a luxury pick for the Bills. And I think realistically probably didn't make sense for them to do it. Especially given like they had a little bit of trouble, made some impactful plays, but they did have a little bit of trouble figuring out what to do with Amari Cooper last year after they traded for him. And now they've signed Josh Palmer. So they still got to now figure out what to do with Josh Palmer and Shakir and Coleman and going into his second year, right? And you still have Curtis Samuel, figure out what to do with him. So I don't hate that they're, not going to get this guy. And it just, again, pushes a couple more defensive players down for the Bills. So I'm okay with it.
And this is super similar to my feelings at edge. I would love the best, like, athletic traits projects at wide receiver and edge at 109 and 132. Give me just upside swings at size speed combinations, best guy available, whether you like, a package like Kyle Williams is like a Khalil Shakir 2.0 or Jalen Noel Falls or Jalen Lane or Tay Felton or Sevion Williams or Isaiah Bond is still there, whoever, just any size speed combo later on there where it doesn't matter that they're wide receiver 5 early on. Like, that's what I want. And the same thing at edge, give me a guy that we get to force some reps early while Michael Hoyt is on suspension, maybe pushes Javon Solomon to a game day inactive, is battling in a spot like that. But if they're game day inactive, it doesn't matter if a 4th round pick is game day inactive. That doesn't hurt anything. That's no big deal. I just, there's a line. I'm not going to reach for a fully lower tier player, but the game theory of who you can get later on, if we can get a D tackle or a corner with that first pick, is so much easier to just put that combination together. And again, there are players who are worth the exception. There are players who are worth like, hey, that guy's just too good. We needed to take it. And honestly, for me, it's probably only Starks as the guy who's still like that good to be able to do it, because for me,
I would take Starks over any of the edge guys left. I think.
Yeah, I just don't know that Pierce Jr. or Mike Green are that much better than Landon Jackson, Josiah Stewart, Braden Swinson, like David Walker, even like that. Hey, cool, they might be better, but those guys might be good too. And I still want one in the top 109 picks. I still want somebody who's good. So if they think that Pierce or Green are that good, sure, let's rock and roll, take that and roll with it. But I just think there's so many other combinations that can make sense.
Minnesota's on the clock.
Feels like, I was gonna say, it almost feels like the combination of taking like a corner and then getting one of those other edge guys after.
Yes.
Like,
there's so many guys that I like at 62 of who's left of like Oladejo, Scorton, Landon Jackson, Josiah Stewart, Braden Swinson. Like, there's so many guys in that range that make sense that also you can afford to bring along kind of slowly to work in. Yep.
Minnesota's up now, and this one's tricky because they were always our favorite trade partner, right?
And again, for anybody who listening who isn't aware, they have the fewest picks in the draft. They only have 4 draft picks. They make the most sense for anyone to trade down.
They seem to be all in on this rookie quarterback contract window. And if they're like, so many teams were trying to jump ahead of them that it makes me think that they have a player in mind that they're going to take here, and teams are trying to jump them. It looks like
it says the pick is in.
So a pick is in. My gut says Maxwell Hairston here to Minnesota. I just think
they are very much a corner team.
Yeah,
I'm going to hope they go with one of the edge. Give me
no
Pierce
more Gilmore,
Jr., Mike Green.
Steph Gilmore's gone. So, pick is in, Chris. Whenever you are ready to announce it, and it's good for the Bills.
Yes. Oh, thank goodness. We needed that.
Minnesota Vikings select Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman, out of the Ohio State University. Maybe this was something where the Kansas City Chiefs were trying to jump out of Minnesota.
That's not an offensive lineman who's not a Chief. It's a pick that doesn't hurt the Bills. Back-to-back sexy picks. Happy time.
Little recoup after the Baron.
I won't lie.
How about Donovan Jackson?
Bad. The Baron Harmon back-to-back. I was down bad.
Donovan Jackson off the board before Josh Simmons, though.
I mean, so Simmons and Will Johnson tell you that no matter what NFL teams try to say, they do not like taking injured players early on. Like, it's just Josh Simmons and Will Johnson are very clearly top 15 talents in this draft. And it just tells you that people like safety with their early pick. And not the position of safety. They like
Houston's up. I thought Emeka Ibuka was a really good fit for them. But he's off the board now, so I think they have to go offensive line here. This is Josh Connerly.
I will say
from Minnesota, but who knows? I have no idea what the hell they're doing in Houston.
So I can see D'Amico being a guy that tells himself he can handle Luther Burden.
I mean, you traded Tunsil, right? Like, could you not? Like, Josh Simmons is sitting there, right? I don't know.
They need offensive line so bad. Just Connerly or either one, Connerly or Simmons. Take one of the two, and then give me one more. Get all 3 of those linemen out of the way, so Kansas City's screwed. Because screw those guys.
Here, Houston's depth chart along the offensive line. Let me pull it up here from left to right. Is Cam Robinson at left tackle? Titus Howard at left
an okay bandit. That, like, the fact that they snagged him right after the Tunsil trade, I think is more helpful than people realize.
They got Jarrett Patterson, Juice Scruggs, and Blake Fisher. So, I mean, on paper, it's not the worst offensive line in the world, but the depth is disgustingly bad.
It's not good though.
And I mean, do they have a single plus starter?
They got Nick
And I
Broken
mean,
in the wings,
how many-
maybe.
What did CJ Stroud get like sacked 60 times last year? I mean, some of that's on him, obviously, too. But like that dude got sacked a ton last year.
It's just one of those things where it's not like the worst thing ever, but like there's not a single plus. Like, is Titus Howard a plus guard now? Maybe. Like, do they have an above average, like in the top 15 in any of the 5 spots?
I don't think it's like 32 though. He gets
correct. So, and again, I'm a firm believer that offensive line is a weak link unit, and that maybe they don't have a huge weak link out of any of those. But
here's the thing too, like the knock on CJ Stroud. What was the knock on CJ Stroud? Like he was Jared Goff, like almost like out of structure. Not the greatest quarterback in the world. Oh, we got trade. Trade.
Giants are trading up with the Houston Texans, 34-99 in a future third. Giants are coming up.
Joe Shane, how could you do that to us, buddy? So we going Shedeur or we going Jackson Dart here? Fine. Because Joe Shane's son posted a Instagram video of Jackson Dart's highlights and then deleted it 2 minutes later yesterday. So the Raiders let their kids pick their.
If they trade up and it's not Shedeur, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
Yeah, it's the Texans are out.
Ian
of the first
Rappaport
round.
is saying the Rams are trading and the Giants are on the clock, but I think he just messed it up. It's Houston.
Yeah. We have a trade. Let's see who's
Give me
on.
back-to-back offense.
Let's let a run on quarterbacks go here, babe. Like, here, there's a world where they take Jackson Dart here, and then maybe the Buffalo Bills can get a team to come up for a 5th-year option and take
the other quarterback, whoever they don't take,
or Jalen Milroe. So
the problem with the Steelers now is they don't have a ton of ammo in this draft from a draft capital standpoint.
They do not at all. It would be the Saints.
Yeah, it would be the Saints.
The Saints give me 40 and 71 for 30.
Mm-hmm.
Come up and get your quarterback. I'll take 40 and 71.
Brian Dable does not look happy.
I would as well. Well, he never does, but
so like I don't know. Again, believe what you want to believe, but like I heard
no one said what the pick is yet.
I heard some people saying that Brian Dable didn't want Shedeur, but the front office did. So I don't know. Waiting on it. They're on the phone with whoever it is. But we still don't have a pick in yet. Watch them not take a quarterback.
That would be hilarious.
Travion Henderson.
34.
It's got to.
Yeah, because the Steelers, they don't have a second rounder because they traded into that.
Is Shedeur in his little studio that he built for himself at home yet, or he's in the studio?
How is this not announced yet?
Jackson Dart is not. He's in the studio too. I guess it resets the clock.
Yeah. When you trade, you get a fresh clock.
I think it's Shedeur. Mom's patting Jackson Dart on the back right now. Oh no, he just smirked. Oh, he just shook a guy's hand. No, I don't know. This seems. Oh, I don't know. I'm really bad at reading. These quarterbacks' body
getting
language
dapped up. It is Jackson Dart. It is Jackson Dart.
The sons of GMs never lie, baby. The sons of GMs never lie.
Oh boy.
All right, somebody come up and get Shedeur and give us a bunch of stuff.
Ooh, I can't believe
that would actually be kind of nice. Like the Saints. That trade you mentioned, Greg. I would take that.
Yeah, 40. Let me look at the value charts here. I've looked at that one quite a few times, but let me look again. So I always use Rich Hill as my starting point. So that's at 196 points, 40 and 71. They put at 149 and 68. So they have that as like 217. That's at 196. So maybe it would be like 30 and 132 for 40 and 71. But I'd totally be on board with that. to give us 5 picks in the top 109.
Absolutely.
I think we still get the corner, a really good corner at 40, or Tyleek Williams at 40, and then you give us pick 71, where you get another really nice pick in that range. I would love that trade.
And just so we don't leave producer Chris in the wind here, Chris, you can ring the chimes here now if you want, buddy. The New York Giants continue to make mistakes, in my opinion. This is crazy. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but like, none of these guys were talked about as first round. These guys are not it. None of them are. This just reeks of desperation. Is it better than using the 3rd overall pick? Sure. But I mean,
so
you just replace Daniel Jones with Daniel Jones.
Like, what's the best case scenario upside for a Jackson Dart?
Cooler looking Daniel Jones. Like, maybe this one's actually got a real shot with K Adams. Like, I don't know.
More handsome Daniel Jones.
The funny thing is like, I thought the Giants were smart to take Abdul Carter with the first pick that they had. Like, I would not have taken a quarterback there with, like, obviously you can't take Jackson Dart 3rd overall, right? So they made the right chalky pick.
My favorite trade, which is the Raiders at 37 and 68. If they were to move up, that's my favorite combo. I just don't know who they'd be trading up for. The Saints are the more obvious one for needing the quarterback, but that 37-68 combo for the Raiders has been like my favorite.
And the Raiders, unfortunately, right? Like, if you talk about they need a receiver with Jacoby Myers, but like Luther Burden, the guy that's left, is like Jacoby Myers. So it's like, that's not the type of guy I don't think they would trade up for, unfortunately. But you never know. I mean, they could. Emin Wari is an interesting guy that maybe if someone wants to get ahead of like a team like Philadelphia, I think Philadelphia and Emin Wari would be a perfect match. Let's say Starks goes to Baltimore. Maybe someone tries to get up in front of them. I don't know, but yeah.
So now we've got Rams, Ravens, Lions, Commanders.
The rumor was, because the Rams are always crazy, the rumor was the Rams might take Milroe. You got Matthew Stafford, who's like 37. You could use Milroe in some packages. You could develop
do we know what the
he's got the big arm.
Trade? Do we know what the trade was?
Yeah, they gave up 99 and next year's 3rd.
Okay.
So 34.
And they gave up
34.
They had 2 thirds already this year, I think, right?
Yeah,
so
correct.
That's not too bad.
So they had 99. They had 65 and 99. They gave up 99. So they still have pick 65.
We have
and then they also have pick 105. So they had 99 was like their extra.
We could possibly have another trade here. Chris is telling us that the Falcons are trading back into round 1 per source, whether it is here or not.
Yes,
at this exact pick is not.
Jordan Schultz, everybody confirming Falcons have moved back into the first round for pick 26.
So they have taken the Rams pick.
Back-to-back trades.
Right. So the Falcons took with their first pick Jalen Walker.
Yeah,
could they be?
Imagine if they got Jalen Walker and Mike Green. And just like boom,
totally revamped that edge rush.
Instant pass rush, boom, immediate.
I think the Falcons, when I was looking earlier,
Malachi Starks, maybe.
Sure.
I think they had the
worst.
Another Georgia guy. They have at safety Jesse Bates and Jordan Fuller. They have at corner.
Who do they have at linebacker?
Terrell, linebacker. They have Troy Anderson, Divine Diablo, and Caden Ellis.
Yeah, dude. If you put in Walker and Jihad Campbell immediately into that defense.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That safety, I think safety makes sense too. A guy like Malachi Starks, because their nickel cornerback is D. Alford.
Real quick, what's their offensive line look like?
Their offensive line is from left to right: Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, personal favorite of most of our shows. Some guy named Ryan Nazeal at center, Chris Lindstrom at right guard, and Caleb McGarry at right tackle. So they don't really have a center.
Don't really need a tackle. Yeah, but I could see somebody now moving up for Josh Sitt or Connerly.
Lindstrom back to center and draft a guard, maybe. But they have guys like Tate Rutledge.
It's got to be one of those top defenders left. It has to be.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, Campbell makes a lot of sense.
They're just going to supercharge that defense. So they gave up
a
46
first rounder in 2026.
So they gave up next year's first to get they got 26 and 101. So that's fair. So
Okay.
next year's first and 46 to get 26 and 101. That's not terrible. That's a fair trade. Fair trade.
I just love the Rams, dude. Like, I just love the way they operate. Like, they're so fascinating and they are so different. And I'll say it, they're cool. Like, they are just cool. Like, Les Snead and Sean McVay are just cool. They might be my second favorite team in the NFL behind the Bills. I just love watching them operate. It's fascinating. They always draft my favorite players too. So, because you know me, I love players that aren't first round picks. That's my thing. So.
Those are your favorite players. Those are your favorite players.
But yeah, the Falcons. To me, it's Campbell or Starks here. It's Campbell. I think
so much sense.
It's gonna be interesting.
All right.
Campbell or Green? That's my guess. Campbell or Green?
Yeah, I think both. If you want to turn around your pass rush in one season, that's the way you do it. When you were just an abysmal pass rushing team a year ago, I mean, like they need it. I feel like safety's not as much of a need for them, but they weren't good either. Their defense just wasn't good last year.
Yeah,
but...
I lied. Even getting 101, that's still they gave up too much. Even like doing the math, like
this is like when this is a poor man's version of when the Texans traded back up to have like 2 picks in the top 5 and took like Will Anderson to go on top of getting CJ Stroud. Oh yes, they took a player I did not want off the board. Chris, You can bring it in, baby. What absolute dummies, in my opinion. James Pierce Jr.'s. This is the one player I did not want the Buffalo Bills to take. He'll probably be the best player in the draft now. But to me, he's a bendy edge who doesn't bend. He's just a linear athlete with like work ethic concerns. Look at his frame. He looks like a safety. To me,
seeing him like as number 27, and you just see if you told me like, oh, that's kind of big for a safety.
Is that like, Landon Collins or James Pierce Jr.? I don't know. I can't tell you.
I will say I respect them for seeing a glaring need, taking it seriously, and addressing 2, highly rated players. Again, whether that's, whether we think that's the right player to take, would have been better to take, Mike Green, but adding Jalen Walker and Pierce Jr. is 2 highly rated players who can affect the pass rush. They're taking a shot at it. They might, I don't know if they're right on either guy, but I respect the approach.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good advanced metrics on Pierce, right? I mean, He does have 30 career tackles for loss, 19.5 sacks, had a 10 sacked, 15 tackle for loss season 2023, had the highest pass rush win percentage of any edge player in the class with at least 250 pass rush
also,
snaps. So
all the things we've seen happen so far make me think that Kirk Cousins is going to be a Steeler.
Yeah.
Trade a first round pick next year for
no, with their contract stuff, I don't think they're going to get all that great of value for him. Matter of fact, they're like haggling over like how much money the team takes along with it. So I think that the Steelers are going to get back-to-back seasons where they get a starting quarterback for crazy cheap.
Yeah, and then we got Brizzy 2K coming in saying, "I'm just staring at Will Johnson right now." I want a vibe check with you guys. My vibe is he's not going in the first round tonight. I think that medical has completely knocked him off of boards to the point where I'm not saying off of boards completely, but off of first.
I was just going to say, like, there's also a limit on 32 players have to go tonight. All 32 players won't be first round grades. Mm-hmm. So some players who are not first round grades are going to go tonight. So at some point, he's the best player available. So I don't know when that is, but I don't think it's pick 50. So like whether a team's like, well, we would take Will Johnson at 35, like, well, then you'd probably take him at 30. I don't know when that line is.
And I think if you're the Bills, unless you have Will Johnson like miles ahead of Revel, Amos, and Hairston, like you probably don't take that risk at pick 30. Now, if you're the Bills and you do have him miles ahead of those guys, then I could see it happening. But with those other guys still in the mix, it's just like, yeah, it's clear that Barron, like the start of the process, Barron and Johnson were very kind of close together, but it's very clear now, seeing how things have gone for him, that the medicals certainly were.
And we have to say also that the Bills are conservative from an injury standpoint. They also signed Mitch Morse. They also extended Spencer Brown. They also, they've made plenty of big investments in guys with serious injury histories. So it's not, they just extended Christian Bedford for huge money. So they are not risk averse to the point where they won't. They just are conservative and careful in what they check for.
Yeah, and I also think like those examples are good examples, but you don't want to have too much of that either, right? There's got to be a line too where it's like, okay, for a rookie,
real quick, shouts to producer Chris for catching this. Jordan Schultz last tweet, I'm going to read verbatim. Reaction by one source to Falcons trading to future first to come back in. What the?
James Pierce Jr. better be Brian Burns for the price they paid. And that was like a comp early on in and then he had sort of a sluggish season at Tennessee, and you have the character concerns, and you just watch the film, and there's just not a lot of bend there for a guy who's supposed to be bendy. Like, he's got to be Brian Burns for that trade to be worthwhile.
Yeah. All right.
Baltimore's on the clock.
Let's circle back here. We've got so that puts the Ravens on the clock. We've got Ravens, Lions, Commanders here. I'd really like some more offensive linemen to go, because screw the Chiefs.
Honestly, I'm comfortable.
Ravens feel super Malachi Starksy. Also, the Ravens are the most aggressive team in drafting injury players with the comfort for redshirting. They do it more than anybody else. I could see them taking Will Johnson for sure, and just taking the upside. They did that with this is the offensive lineman they stashed.
Andrew Voorhees, who's now their starting.
Andrew Voorhees. They did it again with the Michigan defensive end.
Yes.
What was his name? It was
not Adafio Way. It was David Ojabo.
Ojabo. That's
so
right.
They've done more that direction. I could see them taking Malachi Starks to put with Kyle Hamilton. I could see them taking Will Johnson. I could see them taking Tyreek Williams, to be honest.
Starks feels like an obvious one.
Yeah, they have Matt Abuke to replace in the middle of that. Oh no, not Matt Abuke. Who just retired? Didn't someone just retire on that line? I'm blanking on Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce just retired.
They would be doesn't Jihad Campbell feel super Ravensy?
Yeah, I mean they've been developing Trenton Simpson for a while now. Pick is in. Sad day for me. Malachi Starks to the Baltimore Ravens, and that is a very you have Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks now. They get to roam center field for the Baltimore Ravens. That's
a lot of Bills fans are now going to be forced to face their, outlandish stances that we absolutely should not have taken Malachi Starks, because now you're going to have to root against him playing next to Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, that is just such a perfect landing spot for him. That's scary to think about him in that defense, and that's a very Ravens pick right there.
Yes, super Ravensy.
That's tough. That is tough.
Somebody just tweeted Sonny Weaver moved by Atlanta in the trade up.
I'm trying to think. Looking at their depth chart, who's their Their nickel is Marlon Humphreys. They don't need a nickel. Yeah, it's Adarius Washington's their starting strong safety.
No,
it's Kyle Hamilton's going to move to strong safety, and Malachi Starks is going to play free, and it's going to be money.
And now you have Adarius Washington as just a movable chess piece to have as a backup at multiple spots. Super sub.
That's tough for a team that regularly competes with the Buffalo Bills in the postseason.
Oh,
yeah. It's not something
It's fine. We'll beat them again. It's no big deal.
Hope the Bills fans who didn't want Malachi Starks are happy.
I hope you're happy.
I hope you're happy. That one just was too obvious. I mean, that was such a good fit and fit for need too. I mean,
my Falcons guy is posting the You know, the little kid with the calculator, like doing the like.
Oh man.
As a Falcons fan, you've got to be pumped that they addressed pass rush and did it seriously. They overpaid and they picked a guy that's risky. But if it turns out, and this is the draft, we're like, oh my God, you remember when they picked, you know, and they got them both on each side of the line, like, you know. All right, Hairston, Johnson, Mike Green.
Yeah, if we're going back, so looking at my personal big board, I have Mike Green number 1. I have Will Johnson number 2 of what's remaining. Jahad Campbell number 3. I have Xavier Watts number 4, but I'm the weirdo who likes Xavier Watts and thinks he's better than everyone else. But if you're looking at other more mainstream options for the Buffalo Bills, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, Siobhan Revel, Benjamin Morrison, Azari Thomas, those are corners who could be considered. Defensive tackle, Tyleek Williams, Darius Alexander. I think those are the 2. Everyone else, I just don't think first round when I hear their names. I know, Dave, you thought maybe TJ Sanders. At edge, you got Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, Donovan Izaraku. At wide receiver, not so much. Kyle Williams is my next best wide receiver. Trey Harris, Eli Gamior, Luther Burden, or some other receivers on the board as well. So it'll be very, very interesting to see who comes off the board. I think Nick Skirton has been a favorite in mocks for the Detroit Lions here.
Him or Donovan E have been very popular for the Lions.
So, and then Washington could use a corner, from what I remember seeing in the mocks. So it'll be interesting to see.
Washington's offensive line?
Let's pull this up here.
They traded for Tunsil. But they've got Brandon Coleman at right tackle.
He's good. He's really good. He was a good rookie. Yes, he's good.
Coleman, Tunsil, Allegretti, Sam Cosmi, Tyler Biadasz.
Allegretti could be upgraded,
but not anybody that's here in this range.
Detroit could take a receiver. I've seen some receivers.
I could see Commanders going edge. You know, because they traded away every edge they've had in the past couple of years. So I could fully see them. They signed Kinlaw and Dietrich Wise, but I could totally see them going with Green or Ezra.
Who are their corners?
Saint Russell, Marshawn Lattimore, Noah Igbenogany. They could definitely use a corner too.
Yeah.
I think Lattimore's kind of toast.
Adam Peters.
Yeah, I think
that's, to me, I feel like Washington. Is it just me or did Washington make all the wrong moves this offseason?
Yeah.
Like they were on such a run. All flash, no substance. Like, I don't know. I personally just thought they made some weird moves. The pick is in for Detroit.
Okay.
Whether it's been tipped or not, I don't know.
I have not seen it.
Nicky Manwari is still on the board as well, too. The safety from South Carolina.
I think he's.
The Browns do have 33 and 36 now after the trade down. They could make sense to move up just a couple spots to get that 5th-year option and get Shitter. I could see that.
Yeah,
I have a feeling Buffalo's going to trade out. That's my gut instinct here.
But I wonder though, like it feels like a lot of teams. Well, I guess like when the Rams get that offer from Atlanta, they're like, yeah, we'll do it. But like it feels like a lot of teams are trying to trade down and haven't been able to get it done because of what you said.
Well, it's probably because they're offering, so our best case scenario is we would get like 33 and 104 or 36 and 104 to move down from 30. But again, picking up 104, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I would also. And I think just on Manwari, I feel like that's got Eagles written all over it, but I know they have Blankenship there, and so I don't know, but he just feels like
here's a super freaky athlete. See what you can figure out, and especially when you don't have to force him in the lineup early. Exactly. Virtually no draft pick the Eagles are going to make is going to start for them right now, anyways.
Exactly. So, yeah,
the Lions are on the clock here. The pick is in, so we wait patiently for what they could possibly be doing here. And if you're the Buffalo Bills, again, we are 2 picks away. Mike Green, Will Johnson, Jahad Campbell, Donovan Izaraku, Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston, Tyleek Williams, Darius Alexander, Luther Burden, Xavier Watts, Siobhan Revel, Benjamin Morrison. These are some of the names that we're talking about here. But I believe the pick is in. The pick is in.
Times.
The Detroit Lions take one of our personal favorites here at the Air Raid Hour off the board. Tyleik Williams, instant impact run defender, national champion, just an absolute glue guy in the middle of that defense with the upside to be more of a pass rusher as well. So if you were looking at that next tier of DTs after, Harmon and Nolan and Mason Graham and obviously Kenneth Grant are off the board, the next guy to me with a bullet was Tyleik Williams, and he is now off the board as well. 5 defensive tackles have been taken before the Buffalo Bills get to their pick at 30. So that's a little disappointing, but it does leave some corners at the board. If you're the Buffalo Bills right now, right? Like if you are the Buffalo Bills, you're gonna have your choice between Trey Amos and Maxwell Hairston if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I might need a minute.
Was Tyleik one of your personal faves there?
I just
Rebel,
wanted a
right?
large human just one time. I just wanted a large human just once. And you guys never let me have anything nice. Hold on. I'm actually rewinding because ESPN for sure just showed the Ravens' entire draft board.
Oh my god.
100%. The Ravens,
Yes.
the ESPN just showed the Ravens' entire draft board.
Oh my god.
I can't believe the angle that they showed here. I just rewound.
Oh my gosh. Here's the picture.
Like
it's too blurry. It's too blurry to read.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh, then this one. Oh my! Why are they still using markers?
It's marker on whiteboard, but it's round 1, round 2, round 3. It is every single player. It's got red flag guys at the bottom.
Did you see the Chargers setup? Like that's nuts.
Like they literally just showed the Ravens' entire draft board.
Oh my god! I can't make it out from this image, but
I rewound on my TV, and if I walked up closer to it, right now, I'd have to get out of my seat to walk up closer to it to see the actual writing. But 100% someone's going to be able to enhance that and see every single player on their board.
Oh my goodness, that is! I can't wait for the sleuths to get on that.
Every team's going to see their board.
That someone's getting fired at ESPN, and that's 100%. You're going to see some changes next year.
100%.
That's crazy.
That is one of the most egregious mistakes of draft room access I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's
by
nuts.
One of the best and most buttoned up organizations in football.
So is that on the Ravens or is that on ESPN? You think? Like
it's on the Ravens. It's on the Ravens.
It's on the
Ravens. ESPN is the one who was allowed to do, but it's not their responsibility to show or not show anything there. They were given access and they were allowed to show it. Like that's not their fault.
What if it's like it's a misdirect and it's a fake board?
It's for sure not a fake board.
The first pick says Caleb Williams. Apparently that's from 2004. Is that what it says? I don't know.
One pick away, folks. We're one pick away.
We are one pick away.
I'm not over the fact that 5 D tackles went before we picked.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like I did a couple of scenarios. Like
someone's tweeting at me that it's the 2024 board that they have. I don't know that I fully understand why they would have that written out still in their draft room, but someone is tweeting to me that it's the 2024 draft board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are two picks away. To me, with a bullet, the number 1 player on my board is Mike Green.
Yeah.
If you're not discounting injuries,
I don't even understand why Will Johnson's not the automatic pick, but again, I don't know the medicals to know exactly where that is. So
Just going to take a quick look at Dane Brugler to see how many first rounders we have left from his board.
The Bills posted the draft room, and Sean McDermott's phone is face up. Sean McDermott has Twitter on his phone.
Whoa! Hey, I wonder if he ever reads my tweets.
I'm confident he does. I bet he does.
Oh, I bet he does.
We
I bet
got,
he loves the air raid hour. Why tell his mom love the air raid hour?
So Dane Brugler first rounders left are Campbell, Mike Green, Will Johnson, Luther Burden, Simmons, Connerly, Hairston. I mean, these are
Sean McDermott's burner is.
Somebody just wrote, it's funny that the Browns took a Michigan D tackle and the Lions took an Ohio State D tackle. Both teams took players from a college that they're going to get booed when they get their first introduction.
That's great. Commanders still on the clock, huh?
Yeah, they're taking their old sweet time here. Pick is in for the Commanders.
All right.
And now we wait. And it is a tackle for the Washington Commanders and Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. So they add another tackle. Maybe they can kick Brandon Coleman inside now, who is their right tackle. So that'll be super interesting. But if you are the Buffalo Bills, this is good news. The draft board is now set. We know every possibility the Buffalo Bills can make here. If they're looking for an edge rusher, they got Mike Green, Donovan Izaraku, Josiah Stewart, Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, JT Tuamalo out of Ohio State. They're looking for a DT, Darius Alexander, still on the board. But corner makes a lot of sense here. Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston. Jihad Campbell still on the board. Xavier Watt still on the board. Luther Burden still on the board. So there's some other names as well. But where are you guys leaning here as the Bills are now officially on the clock? I know they're going to be trying to trade back, in my opinion, probably. With all these corners?
Yeah,
with all these corners?
I was going to say, with all those corners, if you can move back even a couple spots, like Greg was saying with the Browns, right? Maybe, let's say, and you can pick up like an early 100s pick and guarantee yourself you're still going to get Amos, Hairston, Revel, Morrison. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? And I'm sure Beane's going to be taking calls if people are calling up. But, last year he got that extra third. I don't think he's going to get that this year with this one. But you never know. I mean, if someone wants,
you could also have a little bit of a sweetener if we throw in 132 or some of our extra fifth or sixth. You could get up into. I don't think you get way into the third, but you can get into the 90s or something like that with a late pick there. Let me see anybody who's got that combo. Giants already traded away 36.
Rams had multiple third rounders. I mean, not that. I don't know, maybe
the Rams have 34, but that's trading all the way down quite a ways. They're at 46 now with Atlanta. That's probably a little too far. Although we'd get more back. I'd say someone like, it's New Orleans. New Orleans is the pick. It's being able to, but they're at 40, where we then either get 71. We might have to give up a little something. They have 93, so they could give us 40 and 93 pretty much straight up for 193. That's actually the exact amount of points on the one chart. So they should be in pretty good shape.
It's going to be the longest 6 minutes of my life here as the Buffalo Bills are on the clock. Brandon Beane's going to trade back. He's going to do this to us again, isn't he? He's going to do it to us again, I think. We got 6 minutes here.
But I'm not going to be mad about it if he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all.
Quick side note for just pettiness. Super glad that Connerly went before the Chiefs.
What's the Chiefs still have the Simmons that they could take?
Yeah, but again, the same thing with Johnson. Right. Like I don't know any reason they wouldn't have him as discounted as everybody else because of the injury stuff. But I
have kind of a weird conspiracy theory that they're the ones who got the Luther Burden running routes in practice video leaked. Matt Miller, Kansas City guy. So maybe they want to get Luther Burden pilled out there in Kansas City, take another receiver.
I've heard crazier things.
All right, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock. Let us know in the comment section, not who the Bills are picking if you see it, but Let us know who you want them to pick, as the board is chock full. Edge rushers like Mike Green, Donovan Izaraku, Josiah Stewart, Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, JT Tuamalu. DT has been wiped away in terms of like the upper echelon guys. Darius
Real quick,
Alexander.
before we see anything, this is pure. Give me your call right now. What happens?
I'm gonna go Maxwell Hairston.
I'm gonna go Will Johnson.
I mean, my prediction earlier was Jackson or TJ Sanders, so I guess I'll just stick with that, even though I will be very disappointed in that given the current
The fact
board.
the clock's running this much, I like.
They're trying to trade it.
Two of my no matter what guys are available right now. I will say at edge, Donovan is available.
My preference is trade back. I hope it's
Yes.
Will Johnson, but my preference is they trade back and maybe still do Will Johnson tomorrow.
I mean, Amos was my no matter what corner, so I guess if I'm wanting someone, that's who I'd want. But I feel like because I want it, it's not going to happen. So we'll see.
Come on.
He's very first guy scouted this entire process. It would be great if we ended up with him. Loved him from the start,
cool.
Never came off.
Checking in on the broadcast here. See if we get any hints. We're in the Bills draft room. Brandon Beane is shaking. Brandon Beane is shaking a hand. Pick is in. The Buffalo Bills are making a selection. The pick is in. So, Chris, if you see it, let us know, and we will chat about it. But the Buffalo Bills have made a selection at 30. They did not trade back. They held steady. My guess is
Ryan
now
Dable announced at the press conference Russ will be our starter.
Interesting choice tactic there. Twitter just crashed, according to some people that just texted me. So head over to Blue Sky to get
it's still up for me.
Oh, I just got like 4 texts from people saying Twitter's down, Bills are picking. But anyway, this is going to be super interesting. I think before we get to who the actual pick is, we now have those 4th round picks as ammo to try to get back into the 3rd round, get 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. We have ammo to try to move up on day 2 tomorrow to try and get a higher pick, maybe into the 40s tomorrow as well. So it'll be really interesting to see who they pick here and react to it. And the Bills have a lot of options to collect some draft picks tomorrow as well. Still waiting. The pick is in. Brandon Beane has shaken hands, but we still do not have a tipped pick yet. Ray Davis with all eye emojis on Twitter.
I love Josh Forrest in the comments trolling us. Shador Sanders.
TreVeyon Henderson.
Oh my God. Come on. Be someone cool. Be someone cool.
Let's see. We are. Come on, Damon. Come on, Ari. Come on, Jordan. Somebody tip it.
How is no one tipping the pick?
Tight lips. They don't have their big board showing for ESPN to see it.
That's so wild.
Are they on commercial on ESPN?
No, it's still up.
Oh, they're actually coming out to the podium. It's because they don't want this.
They had to take time for the cool.
So we are going to get this in real time, huh? We are going to get this in real time, huh? Wow. Old school, guys. We are getting this in real time.
The only pick that was not tipped on the internet before. How is this even possible?
Yeah, why?
Producer Chris, the Bills have no leaks.
Do I need to turn the volume up on my
Yes,
phone?
I got to turn the volume on my TV.
Here we go. He's pumping them up. He's ready to go.
Love it.
Hell yes. This is old school.
Tell me if the 16-year-old living with a neuromuscular disorder is a huge Buffalo Bills fan, and he's here with me to make the announcement for his beloved Bills. Let's go, Buffalo! With the 30th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Maxwell Hairston. Let's go!
Oh,
Maxwell Hairston.
Okay.
Fastest guy in the draft. We got our corner.
I had a feeling. My feeling was Mel Kiper has predicted this in a mock twice, and he's the OG. I think he still has some really good connections within the National Football League. This is a bona fide corner to go next to Christian Benford. You can use Trey White in these dime packages now. blazing speed. He can play man. He can play zone. He had that shoulder injury last year, so there were questions about whether he was a good tackler or he was willing in run support. Whatever questions the Buffalo Bills had, they looked back to his junior tape. They had a private workout or a private 30 visit with him. Those questions were answered. And the Buffalo Bills add a bona fide corner to the secondary. You're adding youth. You're adding speed. You're adding electricity to that defense. 2 more of these, and I will be a happy man.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Fastest guy at the draft.
Fastest guy at the draft. 9.63 RAS. Not just the fastest corner, but the fastest overall guy at the combine. I mean, to me, like, this is a guy obviously filling a position of need, but you're filling it with some athletic upside here as well. I think he's a good fit. And I think for what the Bills need now, they can really let him lean into learning from Trey White. Dane Jackson gets pushed down a peg, which I think we all appreciate. And you could potentially have now the tandem of the future with Hairston and Benford locked in. And look, Dane Brugler had him as his 4th overall corner. Has his 35th overall prospect, so kind of right in line with where he's getting picked here. Clearly, right, the Will Johnson medicals are scaring people off.
And you like, if you read what Brugler had to write about Maxwell Hairston, it just makes so much sense as a Buffalo Bills pick, right? He SEC best 5 interceptions in 2023, tied the school record with 3 career pick sixes. So you add that element to your defense. But then he goes on to say a fluid mover with A+ speed, clearly saw that at the combine. Hairston moves fairly effortlessly in all areas of the field. He plays to help his help in man-to-man coverage while also showing conviction and awareness in cover 3. So the ability to match between man-to-man and the ability to play zone gives the Bills flexibility and versatility. He is a natural playmaking. He's natural making plays at the catch point, but he's also more scrappy than strong, which will show up against physical NFL receivers and in run support. So it's not a perfect prospect, but that's not what you're going to get at pick 30. But this is a playmaker, which I think the Buffalo Bills need to add that juice to that defense.
Anyone who wants to go back and just remember watching those crossers in the AFC Championship game, begging for a guy who could keep up running stride for stride with those guys across the field, this is that guy. This is that guy who's not going to get lost in the mesh, that's going to be able to run stride for stride with those guys. Fantastic athlete overall, not just straight line speed, but awesome explosion. Shows it on film. Like the play speed shows, like his recovery and catch up speed is very apparent in what's out there. So love this pick overall. Super, super happy with it. Again, I'm not, was there a chance you could have traded back and maximized the value and maybe still got him later? Of course, I think they
don't take that risk, though.
You could see them doing that here. This is one of those spots where
the Bills had their pick. The Bills had their pick of corner, right? 2 corners have been taken. So this shows that it's not just like last year when we took Keon Coleman, it was like we're going to trade back because there's 4 guys that we like. Like there was all of that talk from Brandon Beane. And now maybe they tried to do that. It didn't happen, but it also says like, all right, now there's some conviction to this pick a little bit, right? Maybe
so
less
I'm going to
so
let you
than
guys
Kyrie
finish up here. As always, Anthony Prohaska and I will do our instant reaction show coming up here in just a few minutes. A lot of fun jumping on with you guys here. This is a blast. Also, this now makes sense why Ray Davis had the eyes emoji.
Kentucky.
The Kentucky
Yes, there we go.
All right. Shout out. Appreciate you guys having me on. This was a ton of fun. I may pop on for a minute tomorrow. Right after, while we were rambling, the Eagles swapped with the Chiefs and moved up from 32 to 31. And they've got that last one in there. All right. Appreciate you guys. This is a lot of fun. We'll talk to you guys later.
Taking a look at my value board here, Maxwell Hairston was 16th. So the following players I had rated above Maxwell Hairston: Trey Amos, Donovan Izaraku, that were still on the board, Xavier Watts, Will Johnson, and Mike Green. Obviously the medical and Jahad Campbell was still on the board. But obviously position for some of those guys, injuries for a guy like Will Johnson. I'm more than happy. Like whether it's Trey Amos or Maxwell Hairston, we got ourselves a corner to go across from Christian Benford. I think our job on day 2 is to go out and get a DT, go out and get an edge, and then to trade up into round 3 for a Ty Felton or a Kyle Williams or someone like that to give us a weapon on offense. That would be the dream. Obviously, other things get in the way of the dream, like my boy Xavier Watts could possibly get in the way of the dream, right? There are other players, talented players at other positions, but if you're the Buffalo Bills, Donovan Izaraku still on the board, Mike Green still on the board, Josiah Stewart, Nick Skirton, Landon Jackson, JT Tuamalu, Femi Oladejo. If you're looking to trade up for an edge rusher, Braden Swinson, whether you're sticking at 56 or trying to trade up, edge rushers are there. There is still good DTs. This is a deep DT class. Darius Alexander, TJ Sanders, Joshua Farmer, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Jordan Phillips, Jamari Caldwell, Vernon Broughton. The list goes on. There are still some good DTs available left in this draft as well. So, Dave, what are your final thoughts before we head out of here this evening?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Amos, Hairston, Revel, like they were all in the same group for me. Yeah, I had Amos as my no matter what guy, but to be honest, like you could have picked any three of those guys, and I would have been happy at this point with the way the board fell tonight, with the defensive tackles really unfortunately getting picked over in the 20s, which was unfortunate. But that dropped the corners down. Barron was always a pipe dream. The Will Johnson medicals clearly not just scared the Bills off, but other teams off as well. And now we've talked about adding speed to the offense in the past. Now you've added speed to the defense. Is Hairston the fastest player we've ever drafted?
Marquise Goodwin, baby, 4.27. Hairston was 4.28, right?
Fastest defensive player for sure, and certainly an element we didn't have on the defensive side of the ball, to be perfectly frank, right in the back end. So,
and Marquise Goodwin had him by 0.1 seconds with the 4.27.
Yeah.
So
look, you're right about the conviction with the pick. They didn't move off it. They went with the guy there. I think probably felt like this was something they needed to get in place for not just 2025, but beyond 2025 as well, right? In a world where you don't have a Trey White veteran kind of in the wings, you can move off of a Dane Jackson, and now you can kind of have your two guys for the future in Hairston and Benford, and now it just has to work out for him, right? Hopefully he gets up there. He's got good energy. He's looking like he's really reacting pretty positively, which is awesome. And we'll see how it goes tomorrow. They got their 2 second rounders. There may be some movement on the board tomorrow. So good night overall, I would say. Even when it looked a little dark there in the early 20s with some of those guys coming off the board.
Hey, do not forget to not turn off your YouTube here. When we are done here in the next minute or so, Anthony Prohaska, Greg Tomset, they are going live to discuss Maxwell Hairston and the pick. They always do such a great job. I know Anthony wished he could be part of our coverage, but he had some other responsibilities, so he's coming on after us. You still get Anthony, you still get his breakdown. That's going to be awesome. Check us out on social. Check everyone else on Cover One out on social. Come right back here with us tomorrow. A huge thanks to Chris Kepner, producer Chris, in the comment section, or not in the comment section, in the what do we call it? The bullpen down there. Chris, what do you want to name it? Chris, you can name it. It's the Chris studio? Kepner Studio bullpen. It's named after him, but kind of just waiting out here, trying to see whether the Chiefs will get a pick in here before it's awkwardly too much waiting. And then after the Chiefs pick, we will give way to the rest of the Cover One crew here with Greg. And
I just saw who the Eagles picked, so that makes a lot of sense.
Jahad Campbell. Yes, Jahad Campbell. Chiefs are picking now, and it's that long, awkward wait once again. I can't believe the Bills pick didn't get tipped. I think I know why now, seeing like who made the selection and everything. So kudos to the people of the internet for having a soul. But Jordan Schultz expects offensive line here. Simmons makes a ton of sense. Could also be a wild card. The kid from Minnesota. What's that kid from Minnesota's name? Ursley or whatever. So it could be super interesting. Maxwell Hairston. Let's go through. I'm looking at Dane Brugler's guide here. He had him as his 35th ranked player. The Bills got him at pick 30. So around you. Strengths, height and length to match up with receivers, 4.28 40, 24.5 miles per hour, the fastest in each category at the combine. He averaged almost 25 miles an hour at the combine. So a really good player, I think, in Maxwell Hairston. And he says a want to in run support, and it's night and day better than when he arrived, the coaches say. So he's willing in run support, even though not the greatest at the point right now. So there are people in the comment section who say major reach. Can't make everybody happy, right? Like, is it the sexiest pick? I don't think so, but I certainly think that based on my board, there was only 3 or 4 guys ahead of him. And to me, it wasn't anything too crazy. I think value at need there for the Buffalo Bills, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully having a good duo there. No Shador in round 1 is another big part. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unless the Chiefs
Let's
take
see.
him.
Let's get this Chiefs pick here. Yeah, the Chiefs take Shador.
That'll be fun.
Chiefs are still on the clock here. I
Is,
closed out of them.
Who am I missing? Donovan E's still on the board, right?
Yeah, Dominique, like Luther Burden's still on the board.
I'm just trying to go through. Mike Green's still on the board, right?
Mike Green is still on the board. Will Johnson is going to not go in round 1. Xavier Watts. My top guys left are Mike Green, Will Johnson, Xavier Watts, Travion Henderson, Donovan Izaraku, Trey Amos, Darius Alexander, Josiah Stewart, Kyle Williams, Nick Skirton, TJ Sanders, Benjamin Morrison, Andrew Makuba, Landon Jackson, Trey Harris, Elik Aminar, Azarie Thomas, JT Tuamalu, Jalen Royals, Femi Oladejo. I mean, we could probably stop talking about the corners now at this point. Kevin Winston Jr., Josh Farmer, Alfred Collins, Carson Schwessinger. I really love Dylan Sampson, the running back out of Tennessee. I got Dylan Sampson built today doing my running back research.
That's fine.
So let's see. We got a pick in yet, Chris? We got a pick in? Still no pick. Can you believe they put an NBA playoff game on ESPNU for the NFL draft? Crazy.
NFL's king, man. NFL's king. Yeah, I mean, look, you know, we both mentioned 35th overall for Jim Brugler, right?
It's going to be Simmons for the Chiefs, and we are going to head out of here so Greg and Anth can take over. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Simmons is the final pick of the first round. The first round is over. Do not leave. Head on over to see the Cover One Buffalo podcast. Greg Thompson, Anthony Prohaska, for myself, for producer Chris, for Dave. Have a good night and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!